All right, and good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Smudtalk number 46. We are talking about Arcane Season 2. This finished up, I think, last week or so, and it's a lot different in terms of quality from the previous season, and we brought on some people to talk about that. I'm not going to show any visuals. This is just me summarizing all of the episodes, and then our panel is going to talk about them as we go. This should take about an hour to 2 hours, depending on how much we have to say and how much we go off topic. So let's start on our left. Who are you, sir, and what are we doing with you today?
My name is James the Maze. I'm a friend of a couple of the people here, and I'm just here to express my disappointment and my thoughts on season 2
All right.
because I really love Arcane.
Sounds good. Who do we got next to Mr. James? Mark.
Say hi, Mark.
Mark, say hi.
I think everyone knows me here.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a racist, anti-Semite. No. So basically, I have seen Arcane season 2, and I wasn't expecting it to be this bad. Like I was expecting that it's not gonna be as good as season 1 because it was just so well put together. But I feel like Arcane 2 was a really mixed bag. Like it still holds like some of the quality in the animation and the production, but it just kind of lost the plot, the way it was trying to like tie all the loose ends by the end. So I was disappointed, to say the least.
Well, we're going to get into all these ruminations soon, believe me. And next person or panelist number 3, how are you doing?
Hello there, and hello, lords and ladies of the internet. I'm the King of Candor. Some of the panel members may refer to me as Kid. That was a name I went by before. But I have a little YouTube channel where I talk about writing through fantasy and sci-fi as well as tabletop games. And I really liked Arcane. It was a lot of fun when we first got on it, and I watched it with my dad when the first season came out. And this season took a bit of a turn for the worse. And I'm here to talk about it with everybody today.
All right, sounds like a good therapy session, right, for me. And I'm Smud Boy. I've been doing this for a while. And yes, I'm also in the therapy mode of talking about Arcane, of what could have been and what they screwed up and things I liked. So that's not all bad. There are some things to say about it. So that's why I'm here. And we have our 5th panelist. How's it going?
Hi, I'm Whisp. You know me. I complain about things. And yeah, that second season was... I had my issues with the first, but very minor, with expected things. But the second it's just duct taped together random plots that should have had their own shows almost.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we're going to go through each episode, so we have a lot to talk about. We're going to focus just on those episodes so we don't go off topic and ramble on here and there. And I'm reading directly from the wiki, so whoever wrote this, we're at mercy of their grammar and their summaries and whatever they try to announce through this. It could be multiple people. I don't know who wrote this. But here we go. This is Season 2, Episode 1, or number 10 out of all the Arcanes, called Heavy is the Crown. Here we go. Jason Mel, alongside counselors Shula and Salo, survived Jinx's rocket attack from the previous last episode of season 1.
First thing I have to mention on this sentence is
the 9/11 of Arcane.
When have these names ever been mentioned in season 1? Or there or at all?
Salo
definitely has.
Yeah.
Which one?
Salo, yeah.
Shula is not mentioned. They list her when they're talking when they're introducing the council members, but it's not dwelt upon very much.
Yeah.
The big problem I had in season 2 is that there were a lot of characters whose name was maybe mentioned once, maybe not at all, or I missed it. And it made it hard to follow certain things, especially if you haven't, if any characters are references to video game characters from League of Legends, and you haven't played for the past 5-10 years, it's just stuff that happens.
Yeah, they make
That's
their
a
own
big
characters
problem.
in this show, but that's fine. You can make your own characters.
You can do that, but a lot isn't. Many characters aren't even properly introduced, where they come from, what their intentions really are. It's all very vague, as if I have to have prior knowledge. You can do that with 1 or 2 characters in your story, but not with too many, because then it's just stuff.
Okay.
Arcane 1 did it like way better. Like every character felt like they were introduced at the right moment. Like I think like they spent like a year at least like to see like how it should be paced, because I remember watching the first season like the first time, and I just felt like, wow, this just flows so well.
I
Arcane
did not.
2 has the trouble that like there are just so many characters at this point, and I was like, who is this guy? It's like, what is his importance? Oh yeah, he's disappeared right away. Like there's the disabled dude. Like I completely forgot his name. All I remember is that like he hit his leg in the explosion, and he's like a crying bitch. And
That's Sallow.
yeah, that's
That's
Sal. This is the first time that I remember his name. So
I think a better example is I still don't know the name of Mr. Fishman, who shows up 3 times.
who is? Oh, the
I-
fish
I-
guy.
I
Yeah,
still
why,
don't know his
why
name.
was he important? Like, why was he in the center?
His
of so
name
many-
was Zeb.
Regardless, Zeb?
Zeb.
Okay. That's the one character I didn't catch. I'm usually much better at character names, so I was going to say, I try to make notes of character names, and even I missed, Zeb's name.
All right.
Yeah, I
I
just
did
called
the-
him the Gungan.
Let's keep going.
Did the
Salo-
Irish girl have a name?
Yes. Salo is left crippled, and the other members, including Caitlyn's mother, are killed while Victor is mortally wounded. Jace reneges on his promise to destroy the hex core and instead uses it to save Victor, which fuses with his body. The counselor plans retaliation against Zahn, though Mel opposes using Hextech weaponry. A despondent Vi refuses Caitlyn's offer to join the Enforcers, recalling the Enforcers killing her parents during Vander's last riot attempt. There's a lot of ideas there. After
Yep.
learning from Junior Officer Maddie Nolan that Caitlyn vouched for her following Jace's attack in Zahn, Vi attends the memorial for the fallen counselors. So the memorial is attacked by Rennie, all these characters, in revenge for Silco's death and Jace killing her son. Vi, Caitlyn, and the Enforcers fight Rennie and her crew until Ambessa and her soldiers arrive and kill them all.
Who?
Realizing that the use of Hextech weaponry is inevitable, Jace begins developing new arms and provides Caitlyn, now promoted to commander, with a custom rifle. Caitlyn assembles a task force, including Vi, to confront Jinx and the remaining Cambarans, as well as to end the production of Shimmer. Elsewhere, Singed, I don't think he's introduced as Singed, haunts a pair of wolves to a cave and prepares to use a toxic gas canister
Yeah,
on them.
he's just called the Doctor.
He's
or
some guy.
whatever.
Yeah, he's just
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the Doctor. Yeah, that's how we know him.
So this text is then likely written by a
AI.
player of the game
Maybe.
or AI.
Or AI, yeah, who knows?
It's the same guy who edits the
I don't-
Wikipedia articles for the Fallout TV show. Like,
Oh.
I don't know, Smart. Like, have you checked that one?
No,
like the
no.
Wiki, Fallout Wiki, because the guy who edited that one, like, has to be like maybe one of the producers of the show,
Oh,
because it's just has the informations like about the 6 agencies and shit like that. As just like the same kind of information that you would get from the Arcane Wiki
Yeah,
articles.
well-
As in, like somebody who played the game and has a lot of information, but like nobody else would just like watch this exclusively.
describe it this way. Yeah, when I was watching
Yeah.
episode 1, everything's destroyed. They have this wake of a funeral, and then there's all of a sudden action. There's all the Zonites come and attack. And you're like, what is going on? It just happened so quickly. So the tone just jumps really quickly. And that's fine. You could do shock scenes from here and there. But it's as if everything's so organized. Like Zon is just a bunch of ruffians, and they're so organized with all this infiltration and all this setup and weaponry and massive dudes in armor. And you're like, where did all these guys come from?
Yeah,
Unannounced.
then I never
get
noticed anything about Zaun ever again. Really, there's nothing I can connect. If I just watch it, what other things connect to this faction?
Zahn is the Undercity. Everybody in the Undercity at all is Zahn. So all the people who are dealing with that situation. There are multiple times where Zahn shows back up. And I think that one of the problems that I will say with the opening of the show is it opens, like we said, fantastically on a nice somber note. It moves very fast, and this is setting up a problem throughout this whole season. They were told they're doing 2 seasons for Arcane, and they're going to do multiple spin-off shows. In theory, that's a great idea. Unfortunately, the problem that the show quickly runs into is they very clearly had 5, maybe even 6 seasons of content planned, and they rushed it into one season here so they could get to the point where they could do spin-offs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Which
no.
that's
Which
never-
I don't understand why.
Rushing an ending never hurt the writers in any way, right, D&D? Like, seriously.
It's a lot what you see with these types of writers. They are very impatient,
Mm-hmm.
and that
I will
that just ruins it. I mean, why not? You have a thing, you have a game that's already running for almost 20 years, and are at the point where you can afford to make these amazing shows. I did not expect the first season to be as good as it was at all, even though it was unnecessarily ugly in some places, regarding the usual style. And you can just produce endlessly, make quality every year. People will remain hooked. And then they do this,
Well,
and you see this in every media.
In relation to the organization of Zon, it was explained that Silka was a mastermind, and that's why everything worked in Zon with the Chem Barons. He was in control. Now that he's gone, you're like, okay, are they like super geniuses that they can organize stuff at the drop of a hat and have all this infiltration technology and all these giant chem dudes with massive pieces of armor?
Yeah.
And, like it was so, like they had a freaking airship with dropping stuff. Like all this stuff was well organized. And you're like, okay, is this like was Silco holding them back? Was this something they're ready to do? What was the focus of this aside from causing chaos and just having an action scene? I was trying to wrap my brain around like how did this come to pass? Because everyone was just sort of like somber and looking around, and then Vi's like, "What's up with all these dudes?" And, like no one else is noticing this. What's going on?
Yeah,
And
no
what
one
I'm
knows this
confused
guy
ab-
with the tattoo.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying no one knows the guy with the tattoo and kind of
Yeah,
and
that
walking
was
onto
just
the
such
stage.
dead giveaway.
Yeah, Anyway, yeah, I have more to say about episode 1, but I'll let whoever wants to speak first speak first.
I have my base problem I had with Arcane, and that's why I get confused with Zaun here, is that I always thought it's the city on the other side of the water.
No,
Because
it's
that's
basically
supposed to be
North
Twin
Korea.
Cities.
It kind of is. It's all across the river and it's underneath it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's more of an underground situation. They purposely keep it kind of vague, and I know
And
why.
that annoys me, because you have the Undercity and you have Zaun. And when are they? It's as if they're talking about different things, and when they are but the same thing, but different things. I'm sorry, I need this to be a bit
okay.
more clear.
Yeah. Well, either way, the first episode is not that bad. Like it sort of makes sense. We're introducing stuff very quickly. Action scene happens very off the cuff, and you're like, okay, we got some conflict. Fair enough. It ends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I did want to talk about that a bit quickly. The conflict here, the reason it feels so off to everybody is, again, it's a symptom of them rushing through everything. We don't get the time to fully understand and decompress to see how the city of Piltover feels about the council's deaths. We get a little bit of that, and then it has to immediately rush into, we're having the funeral, we're having the council scenes, it'll be done, and we immediately have to have the attack. Like was said, we couldn't understand what the resources that the Chem Barons here have. We don't really know how they could get this stuff so quickly, because we don't see any preparation or anything like that. It's very annoying because the whole thing has been compressed into such a fast pace. We need to get past this as quick as possible, because the chess pieces need to move to other spots of the board so we can move the storyline going forward. Instead of really what should have been the Chem Baron attack, if this was a normal episode, would have happened at the end of episode 1 of this season, whereas the first episode would have been a lot more of a setting of what's going on. Maybe if for a second action scene, you could have had Vi get into a fist fight with somebody who's like saying that we need to kill all the people of the Undercity for this, and you could have had other action scenes and other story moments and character moments put in there, as well as us getting to know Maddie, the fish guy, and not Vander. We could have gotten to know these other characters here and seen how they interacted and how they would have said, hey, we don't want to deal with, these people. We want to try to, work together better. But we had to rush past that. And another problem is the council attack scene. So when they actually get attacked during the funeral here, it's very chaotic and it jumps to all these characters a lot, which normally is fine. But for this show, for some reason, everybody's on pause when they're not on screen. There'll be like a character. Great example: the lady who they cite. What was her name here again? They list it in this thing. Rennie. She's got a big weird double chainsaw thing. She comes
Yeah.
up towards Jace. She's like a foot away from Jace. And as anybody knows in a slasher movie, the minute the slasher's right next to you with a chainsaw, you're probably going to have a bad time. It cuts, we see another action scene. We come back, and she's teleported away. This is a lot like a lot of the bad slasher movies where the villain or the hero keeps teleporting around because they don't have a real good sense of time passage and scale, and because they want to keep the tension high. So the killer must always be almost there, but they can't actually execute on it yet because they have to hit that runtime.
Yeah, while Jace is wielding, well, actually, he lost his hammer, and he found a little dinky hammer, and he's like walking around
Yeah, that looks
crippled.
stupid.
So there was a little bit of comedy in there, a little bit of drama, and yeah, the action was always jumping from one to the other a lot.
I kind of like it that you said like why should have gone into a fist fight, but like instead like she got into fisting with the blue-haired woman. So
happens later.
is
I will
something that we
say,
had to
Don't you
see.
spoil that.
Oh
Yeah.
dear.
Vi in
think-
episode 1. Go ahead, kid.
I wasn't saying nothing.
All right, sorry, my bad. Shit.
All right, well, are we ready to move on?
No,
Yeah.
it was just my general issue with the world building is that I don't have any sense of life of Piltover when I think back of what I remember of the show. Of the Undercity, yes, but not of Piltover. You have the inside rooms of where Caitlin lives, you have the council, you have this rather empty laboratory of Jace and Victor. But other than that, there's only outside shots of the city of Piltover. I don't actually know what's going on there, who lives there, and how they are affected by the riots.
I will agree with that. We don't see that
Gypsies
at all for
mostly.
season 2.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Father.
All right, I'm going to move on to episode 2. Here we go. This is called Watch It Burn. After Silco's death, Zon devolves into anarchy as Kembaron Smeech Tross and Margit fight for control of the Undercity despite Savika's plans for unity. Smeech proposes surrendering Jinx to Piltover in exchange for ceasing the hostilities, but Savika refuses. Jinx meets a young orphan named Isha, who follows her after Jinx saved her from attackers.
She had a name?
Yeah, she didn't have a name then, but
Yeah.
she does later. In Piltover, Victor awakens from his coma to a fully metal-clad body, and realizing that Jace broke his promise, parts ways with him. He returns to Zon. I don't think that was actually what happened, but fine. He returns to Zon, where he inspires a cult-like following after healing Huck, a Shimmer addict, with his newfound powers. Echo's Firelights struggle with the influx of refugees from Zon's civil war, and the tree begins to show signs of corruption. Echo and Heimerdinger sneak into the academy for some reason and discuss the matter with Jace. Caitlin's team raids Jinx's childhood arcade. Jinx escapes after spotting Vi in full and force her attire, causing her to break down. She is ambushed by Smeech and his crew, but is saved by Isha and Savika, who kills Smeech. Jinx reveals to Savika that she intends to finish off what's left of her family in his lab. Singed begins to experiment on the organs of the wolves he caught. Okay. This one was... we saw a little sneaking of Heimer and Echo in a clip like months ago. We thought that was kind of cute. And then we realized, but Heimer, you own this place. Why are we sneaking? What's the whole... Like, the whole scene is dumb. There's no reason for any of this to happen. All he has to do is walk through the doors and they'll let him in. It's Heimerdinger. So
anything cutesy with yordles is acceptable as long as it doesn't go to Jar Jar Binks levels, because that's what yordles are supposed to be.
You know what could have made the scene a tiny bit less stupid is if they did try the original way, but they didn't let Echo in because he's from the Undercity.
explain it. Yeah, exactly.
Good
Give me a
point.
reason why they're doing this stupid going through the ducts and just like... And Echo's like, why are we doing... Even Echo's like, why are we doing this? Like, what? You own the place.
Echo. Yeah, it's very weird. And I will also say I am, and this is just me, but why aren't the firelights expanding? Like, they have all these refugees. They probably have a few more members. Why aren't they trying to expand into the Undercity with all this chaos and try to make it better?
They're not an aggressive outward faction. Again, it even says in here they're trying to keep people away from Zon Civil War, which we barely hint at. It's mentioned a little bit because some of the Kenbarums are fighting each other, and the only results that we see of the Civil War are more people showing up around the tree, and the deaf girl Isha, who is probably the most plot important character. And I'm going to tell you right now, Chad, if you have not seen the show, Isha is a very disappointing character because we get to know nothing about this little girl. She literally falls on top of Jinx as Jinx is going around in her depression arc and sticks in the plot and constantly solves problems.
Yeah.
It's very strange the skills this 8 or 9-year-old has when she's deaf and she was unable to stop 3 big burly guys from, grabbing her, which we never find out why they wanted to grab her, for the record. Again,
She's
because we're too
deaf?
rushed
Yeah.
to get these things. Well, yeah. Because we're rushing through everything.
Well,
I missed that completely.
the main
She
issue
could
that-
have.
the main issue
She
I had.
could have almost have been one of those characters that only existed in Jinx's mind, but they then did that with Silco in the end,
Well,
where she has is talking with the spirit of Silco basically.
the main problem I had here was with Victor coming out of his chrysalis and he's like arguing with Jace. It's like, I don't remember him. Oh, I should have destroyed the hex core. Sorry, I don't remember that at all. I just remember Victor being, I gotta go because I disagree with you on something, and he just goes. And it's
No,
like,
that was definitely there. That
It was there? Okay.
He mentioned at the beginning, he's like, I thought we agreed to destroy it.
It was
And
there.
Victor was like, I'm sorry. Jace was like, I'm sorry, Victor, I couldn't let you die. Because the hex core was trying to reach out towards Victor, and Jace grabbed it and brought it to him thinking it would help.
right.
That was mentioned there, and that's why Victor's still like, dude, and I also disagree with the synopsis here. That wasn't the only reason he left. It wasn't that you broke the promise. It was because something was drawing him away and he didn't feel right after the promise was broken too.
Right.
It was two
Not to
things. You could
mention,
see
he
in his
also-
face.
He also saw I also have a feeling he saw those Hex Tech weapon designs that were on Jace's desk, and I really want to pay homage that technically Jace has blueprints for Hex Tech weapons, so yeah. I do think that's part of why Victor also left, and I don't really blame him. I do wish there could have been a little bit more discussion between them, but I guess for Victor, enough was said.
Yeah, and
Don't forget, Victor had to step into his future footsteps that were lighting up on the floor.
Oh yeah, that's when the psychedelics start happening. We'll talk about that later, but it gets very trippy as we go throughout the entire story. It just gets bigger and bigger as the kaleidoscope of art hits you in the eyeballs for no reason. But yeah, no, there's lots of stuff going on, and it's not like, I think just Jace just wanted to work with Victor again because he's his friend. He's like, hey, dude, this is what really matters to me, and we gotta figure stuff out. I didn't want you to die. It's like, oh wow, you saved my life, even though you disobeyed what you were gonna do with the Hex Tech core. He still saved his friend. It's like, you'd be a little thankful, maybe. I don't know. That'd be nice.
I mean, yeah, I don't think Victor was angry overtly angry with Jace. Part of him probably was, but I never got a feeling of animosity towards him. More like, oh, I guess this is kind of where we part ways now. You saved my life, but
Yeah,
we've kind of gone off into different directions.
because I feel something, and then we later learn in that episode that he's following the ghost of the dead assistant. That
Yes, guy.
yeah, that was like, what's going on with this? Is this a thing? Were they a
The
couple?
most forgettable character from season 1.
I couldn't remember. Yeah, I was like, oh okay.
Yeah, it's like that was like that made me laugh out the most.
Was that-
It's like I was like, oh, like seriously?
Was
Like,
that a-
that served more purpose?
Was that a force ghost? Was that his imagination? Like, what was going on there? I wasn't quite sure.
I thought
like
like
the
she got
Arcane?
sucked into the Arcane or whatever the hex tech shit.
She got
So-
stuck into the hex core, like went into
Yeah,
him.
hex
So.
core, yeah.
Okay.
So, like she was the virtual girlfriend.
Yeah, I was like, this is
VTuber,
weird.
Essentially.
Is the hex core lying to Victor to make him do something? Is this like, was she just chilling out in X-Tech
I
land?
think like the hex core wasn't really lying. Like it was just trying to like do the thing, but like
Most
whatever the Victor didn't know like what's gonna cause.
most interesting part of it for me was the fact that I also kind of, I get what you're saying, Smut, that it felt off, but I think I originally was like, oh, I see. So whatever this Arcane is, it's trying to trick Victor, trying to make him play to his base want to help people, and we'll slowly twist that.
Maybe, yeah.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the
Yeah, I
United
thought-
Nations. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I just kind of, yeah.
Again, I thought it was an okay episode. It didn't grate on my nerves, but I saw where they were going with Victor, and I was like, this is because we don't know what they're going to do with him. So I was like, okay, this has potential. Victor is this revolutionary character. Maybe he's going to, do his own thing, use technology.
Yeah, that was the good part.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, this is a good premise to work with. So if this was like more in the first episode and they built it into that a little more, I think and they just didn't have any action. They wish would have set this up. Then we could have fleshed it out in episode 2. But, whatever they wanted, I thought this was okay to understand what was going on.
Yeah, I thought it was okay too. Plus, the art in that final scene with Victor was amazing. Like, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It looks amazing, and then we get into, we get dreamscape, bizarre whatever is going on in the story after a few episodes. Anyway.
Yeah,
You get celestial vision.
Yeah, it reminded me of some of those skins. I can't remember what they were called, but everyone's like a space god.
They were called evolution skins, and I think they made them about 5 years ago.
They were a long time ago. And there's like Jin has like this like dark god Jin or whatever it's called. He's got like talking about this dark suns and stuff. I was like, this is cool, but I have no idea what the hell it is.
I have a question. Is Silco the Arcane's version of Jin?
No.
Because
Jin's going to be in a spin-off.
Oh, really?
Oh, because in the last episode, the way that Silco's ghost is standing in the shadows, it makes him really look like Jin.
Well,
That's not a ghost. That's just Jinx's insanity.
Yeah, in the
I know. Well, I don't know how to refer to it in a world where you may have actual ghosts.
Yeah, in the opening animation, you always see Victor putting the mask on. I was like, well, Victor does have a mask in the game, but so does Jin. I was like, that's more like a Jin-looking like character than it does look like a Victor character, because Victor's all Mr. Metal is awesome and steel is the future, and you're like, okay, what does that mean?
Well, they're retconning his appearance in the game. They're going to make it look more like his Arcane appearance.
Yeah.
Which, I'm not going to lie, I liked his Arcane appearance, but I liked his game appearance a little bit more.
I've never played the game, so I'm impartial to it.
Okay. All right. Well, again, episode 2 was pretty fine. I didn't have any huge problems with it.
Well, there's a couple actual things here. First of all, this is the first real time with Heimerdinger, and going off of, like we said multiple times with the Russia things, we never get to see Heimerdinger realize, oh, a bunch of my friends are dead on the council.
Oh,
yeah.
And he never even like really acknowledges when he walks in the room and he sees, because Heimerdinger and Echo intersect with Jace and Victor as they're doing the experiment for Jace to bring Victor back. Heimerdinger was like, oh, this is pretty neat. When the last time we saw him, he was so upset and so convinced magic was going to kill everybody, he gave up his position as like head, I guess wizard, and left to go wander the sewers. That's how upset he was with the fact that they were using so much magic. And now he sees his former student in this like cocoon tomb thing, pulsating with magic that's like reaching out and like looks gross and disgusting, and it's almost like a fungal growth, and he's fine with it. It's very strange. He should have had way more of like questions or interactions, and it could have been a nice moment where Heimerdinger is like, hey, what the heck is this? And Jace can't explain it to him. He has to admit that he's failed in his understanding of the arcane, and Heimerdinger can sort of have an I told you so moment a little bit. Doesn't have to go that far, but that idea of he gets behind it and he says, hey man, this is why I said we shouldn't mess with the arcane, because we don't know what's going on here. Look at what's happening here. And now you're combining it with Victor. What is this going to lead to? This can only lead to bad things. And they would have had that pushback, which would have really helped start Chase down I think the arcane might be bad. Because, Chad, if you haven't seen later on, when we get to punish Jace, he very much thinks magic is bad, I should kill all wizards.
Well,
so when we get to that point, it's because I think having the crack show here and having him slowly start to realize, because Heimerdinger was right and we get to reinforce it here, would have made that go on better and makes the change much less abrupt.
Yeah, I think the story focused on Heimer's just being a character for comedic purposes in this episode. They didn't think of, we should use him for drama, we should use him for exposition, we should use him for...
He should still be a consistent character, and
exactly.
What you just described is very emotionally superficial writing, which is what this second season suffers from a lot, which is why it's so ham-fisted and rushed. And James, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I agree with you, kid, that Heimerdinger should have had a lot more lines and said some things about his friends, but I also feel like he should have talked to Jace about how he completely fucked him over in season 1, and also the fact that he put that hex core into his best friend. And
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
Talking about the whole
Like-
talking about the thoughts on the Arcane.
I will say that the release of Arcane coincided with the Jinx fixes everything thing on the League of Legends app, or whatever you call the game, whatever you call that app that loads up the game. So it's like a 3D real first person like exploration game, and it goes through that arcade where she has to repair what's her name's fist. Savika's weapon. So you have to actually manually find the parts, and you put it together, and it's like a slot machine. And she's actually a character in TFT this season, whatever, 40 episode 40 or episode 40, whatever version of TFT they have. So it's actually, it got you interested to say, okay, you have to wait for the episodes to come out. Once you go watch the episodes, come back, play this little mini game, and build this thing. It's fully 3D. So they did a really good job of integrating that with their platform, which I thought was, I mean, that's the League of Legends does that extra step, or Riot Games does that extra step of polish to incorporate you to, hey, check out, we have an entire animation department that do amazing crap, and you're the gamers.
But how can you then fail at something like writing, where you don't need any special effects?
It's a good question to say whether or not the writers had the reins this time, or whether the animators did. I don't know.
Regardless
I have
of
a
the
feeling
reins,
if you get
calling
bad
this a
writers,
failure-
that happens automatically.
I think calling this a failure of writing is a bad statement. This is not a failure. This is a rush job. There's two different things. If you do any physical work, you know that you need a certain amount of time. Like painting is a great example. There's only so much time you can cut off of painting before you have to just skip spots, basically. That's kind of what goes on here. There's only so much you can write, and only so much that you can actually punch up and just cut out before you're only hitting a highlight reel, essentially. And that's what happens when you take multiple seasons of content down. That's one of the problems they had here. They had to get to the point where basically League of Legends starts, if you will, for the rest of the storylines that the other people have and the other plot points and the other bits that are going on. In fact, this is probably something that, if I were to guess, came from corporate because they don't want to rely on one TV show. They wanted to have multiple shows, multiple different smaller projects going on, because they realized that having one broad strokes thing, you're just going to get people disappointed that their thing hasn't shown up yet. Whereas they can now have multiple smaller little individual stories in the world of Arcane.
Yeah,
And that's
but
why
that's
they want
like
to rush it.
introducing the kind of garbage that Marvel and DC are doing, and it's not working out for them. That they want to show everyone. It doesn't make any sense, because what the show should have been focusing on solely is Vi and Jinx. That those two should have been the main focus, and they have just distributed all this time between things that we really shouldn't have seen. The relationship between Vi and the lesbian cop.
All right. Well, let's keep going.
That was taking way
Let's
too
go on
much
to
time.
episode 3, where things start to take a little bit of a turn.
Oh, what is happening in episode 3?
Okay, here we go. Finally got the
Things to
name
say
right.
about-
Here we go. Jinx plans to return the gray, collected smog from Piltover via the ventilation system. Concerned by Caitlyn's increased aggression after her mother's death, Vi begs her not to change, to which Caitlyn promises before the two share a kiss. So this was the will they, won't they sort of issue from season 1, and it was always done very maturely, meaning they care about each other, but we don't know how. And a lot of people are like, oh, they're lesbians, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, it doesn't matter what you think. The story just shows them caring for each other, and that was totally fine. So now they're romantically involved. But the great thing about that scene is immediately after they have a fight, and immediately after that, Caitlyn goes to the dark side. It's really cool. Anyway, after a failed assassination attempt on Ambessa, the Black Rose, a Noxian cabal of duck smell, Echo, Jace, and Heimerdinger explore Victor's theory of wild runes, arcane anomalies caused by exploited hex tech, and discover one in the hex vault in the form of a large mutating orb that's contaminating Zaun. Deep within Zaun, Vi and Caitlyn confront Jinx and are ambushed by Savika, while Caitlyn fights Savika off. Vi duels and subdues Jinx. This is what we're going to talk about. Jinx accepts death at Vi's hands but Isha intervenes and shields Jinx. Vi disarms Caitlyn after she doesn't heed her calls to stop shooting at the risk of hitting Isha. Savika detonates Jinx's paint bombs and opens an air duct, spreading the gray across Piltover as she escapes from Jinx and Isha. Angered that Vi's actions have resulted in Jinx getting away, Caitlyn hits Vi and leaves her behind. Ambessa, revealed to have orchestrated the memorial attack, blames the assassination attempt on Zahn to engineer the imposition of martial law before appointing Caitlyn as commander-in-chief, which she accepts, and Zahn, singed, feeds his blood into the newly created human-wolf hybrid. Okay, so this is where things are sort of ramping up. And I just mentioned the romance between the two. And the great thing about this scene is that it happens. You're like, oh, that was unexpected. I mean, it was built up from the first season. But to come to this sort of weird, like, can I talk to you for a second off to the side? Okay, but please don't change. And then they kiss. And immediately after that, they have the fight. They immediately depart again, so they hate each other. And then immediately after that, we see Caitlyn go full Imperial. So it was just this complete, like, oh my God, they're going to do this now? And then, boom, no, we don't have time for that. Oh, we disagree. Oh, now I'm really far away from you. So that I liked. If they're going to do it that way, great. Because it was like, here's 0 degrees of separation, and then all of a sudden we're as far apart as possible. So that was okay.
I agree. They sped around every lesbian and every police officer relationship.
Yeah.
You immediately get your wife, you hit her.
Boom.
Yeah. I will say it was a bit shocking that Caitlyn hit her with the butt of her gun. It wasn't like in the face or anything like that, but when I saw that, I was like, damn, Caitlyn, that seems a bit far. But then I realized Caitlyn's pretty angry. And it's clear she regretted it, but she didn't say anything and just ditched afterwards. So.
Because there was a conversation right before that. And Vi tells to Caitlyn, if you can take the shot, take the shot. So she's like, okay, I'm going to take the shot. She's about to take the shot, and Vi's like, don't take the shot. I was like, what are you doing? Like, stop. There's a girl in the way. It's like, I wouldn't have missed. It's like, oh, right. And it's this weird sort of like, are you stupid? And then Vi's like, no, don't kill my, like she couldn't just say, don't kill my sister. Like she couldn't just say it there. That's how she was feeling, even though she realized
what
that.
They could have done instead? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. What should you have done?
I was going to suggest, like, perhaps Vi having hesitated and Caitlyn wanting to kill Jinx for what she's done. Vi tries to suggest, hey, how about we just capture her and take her to Piltover Court or something? That way she can face justice for her crimes.
See, that's great because we never got to play up Caitlyn's sense of justice, which I thought, because she's this aristocratic family, she strongly, and plus she joins the Enforcers, she strongly believes in justice. And she kind of does in the series. But at this point, she just wants Jinx dead because of what she did, because she killed her mom and everyone else, which is totally acceptable. But the story never went that way. And it could have easily gone the route of playing into the weaknesses and strengths of characters as opposed to headbutting Vi in the face and like having them depart.
Also, I will say the fight scene in the vault, though I liked it visually, I had some problems with it looking back on it.
Oh, God,
like,
yeah.
Why is Savika not killing Caitlyn? Did Jinx tell her not to? Because it seems like she's doing chokeholds and just keeping her out of the fight.
Why isn't Vi destroying, after she punches Jinx with her fully powered Hextech weapon, which is stronger than her previous gauntlet, apparently, just crushed her torso? Apparently not. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, the show's always been kind of weird with their, like, Savika in season 1. She got tossed right into a goddamn bar, like, back first. You think that would kind of, I don't know, put her off commission, but it doesn't. But I will say, at the time, I could give Jinx the benefit of the doubt because of the shimmer in her system.
That's she has the speed thing, whatever. And I'm like, okay, maybe that allows her to dodge. But once you get hit, you're hit, and you are out. Not only you lose all the air in your lungs, you just broke a few ribs.
Yeah. That's literal plot armor that
exactly.
She should have been turned into a pile of red mist.
Yeah.
I mean, plus she got hit right through a stone pillar, so...
that too.
Yeah. So, literal player character that has more hit points.
Yeah. Plus the ending, we see the gigantic, not Warwick character, which is like, who is this? Why is he gigantic? What's happening?
Yeah.
I think I want to
Also,
talk about the arena
I-
they fight in, since we're talking about that. What the hell is this? There's an entire temple underground, and we get nothing about this. I know it's a reference to another one of the characters in the game, who's a wind deity, but it really is upsetting to me that when I'm watching the show that there's this entire underground city that has an underground city that implies this is an ancient religious structure.
Yep.
And it's like, did they have gods here? What are their gods here? This is really cool. Can we learn about them? They make several curses like by the gods and stuff. Who are their
that they
deities?
never mention it again.
Yeah, especially with what goes on with Victor, how he becomes, the end all be all, the pinnacle of humanity, the evolutionary one. Why have they not mentioned it? Why, especially when they talk about when Victor's playing Jesus in the garden in a few episodes. Why aren't they talking about, he's like a deity, he's a reincarnation of this?
He's
Nothing?
basically he basically becomes the demiurge because
Yeah.
all the houses in that commune, they're all grown. Nothing there's built. It's all just this presentation image.
I forgot the tree was a thing. I was like, was there a tree in the first season? I guess there was. I can't remember. And it's
Yeah, you saw it for 5 seconds.
yeah, and then it's sick, and you're like, oh, is that bad? Is that like going to cause like losing food, or what's happening here? So
Well, it's just that the
Like
thing is
what
spreading.
I
Okay,
understood is that like there's like some kind of sewage that gets in the system because of Hextech, but like how is that connected to the tree?
yeah, and that
My
just
main-
happens to
Like,
connect.
they just kind of skimmed over that thing. Like it is mentioning like just a very smart part of it, but like
Yeah.
they don't really make it the focus, even though the show kind of wants you to care about it. It's just I don't know.
Yeah,
Like they really should have focused on that.
they
instead of the
they made
basics.
a big stink about how that gas spread all through Piltover and exploded in this colorful whatever nuance, and then you're like, okay, so now the dirts and all the grime literally of Zon is coming up because
Zon.
of this air
should
duct.
they all be dead?
They're choking. They're choking to death. Yeah,
It's just some
Like,
smog,
right,
so
yeah.
it's very poorly done in the show.
It's experimental internet gas.
So it's just
Exactly.
all China now.
If
Yeah.
someone gets that reference.
Yeah, I get it. I remember that character. Don't worry, he got canceled. So speaking, there's a lot of stuff that happened in the show because of China, and I would actually argue the reason they're not lesbians in season 1 is because of China mainly, and you can see that if you've seen the clip from the Chinese version of the
It's
ending.
so
Yeah,
hilarious.
it's so good. I
It's
wish
just
I
how-
was
it-
watching the
it-
Chinese version. Dude.
They're just having a sleepover, which is very funny.
She
Yeah.
rests her head on nothing. It was
There you
hilarious.
Where they
She's
got
just tilting
schizophrenia.
it
Yeah.
thoughtfully.
I will also, can I also bring up how Savika is so underutilized? And I am very curious on what the state of Silco's organization was, because it seems like Savika's all on her own.
Yeah,
And
it does. Like
I'm-
she seems to be like leading the remnants of what Silco's organization was.
yeah,
And she
yet
has
she's
one
having
arm.
a hard time rebuilding
All the
that one
others are
arm.
just
Like,
trying
I-
to like grab for power.
And you have
I mean,
no idea who they
true.
are. You're like, who are these guys? What are they trying? What do they want? They're just there.
The only one who gets any
Yeah.
personality is Smeech, and then he gets 86 immediately.
Yeah, it's weird
Yeah.
that they have this weird musical number of the people sitting at the table, and they're all like, rap. Is it rap? I can't remember what exactly the music was. And it's
look
just
it
this
That was
awkward.
one of the better musical numbers.
I suppose.
But many of them fall flat, but that was actually visually done well because you had the visual
hated
storytelling
every
of
single one of them.
the crime lords disappearing one by one.
Yeah, they're all dying, and you're like, oh, is this a thing? Like they're doing a weird artistic montage, and you're like, okay, is this?
Yeah,
It's
well,
a montage and a recap, really. 'Cause we
Yeah,
saw
where
one
the
die at beginning
other-
of this season, and the other two died in season 1.
yeah, and the other musical numbers are often just they fall flat. They don't fit the point, or personally, I didn't like the music,
The music was
but
so
that one was okay.
So anyway, this was a mixed bag for me. I enjoyed the episode visually; it was very well done, as always is visually. But the one thing was, okay, they're answering the question: do they like each other? They do. It's romantic, and then boom, we end with the chest thumping at the end of the episode with the Imperials coming in, and I thought that was nice nod, but again, we didn't see anyone from the games or from that element of that, or sorry, the faction. What were they called again? Not the Imperials.
The Noxians.
The Noxians.
Noxians.
No one from there makes it.
I have one giant problem with this episode, and that is to do with the Noxians. First off, Noxus is not properly introduced at all, and the way the show presented itself to me with season 1 was, and we see this later on in the parallel timeline, was that, oh, isn't this supposed to be the thing where everything's technological and then we discover magic, which is the hex tech. But then you have the Black Rose, which just does super magic, with the super magic assassination attempt against Ambassa, which then fails because the super magic is apparently not super enough, though it looks like world-ending type stuff, at least the way it's presented from the character's point of view. And so there is magic already in the world. That is wholly confusing to me. And the last point on that is, in the first season, the character that Jace got the rune from, I thought that was Malzahar. I did not, because there's no point to ever assume that's future Victor. But I thought that would have made long-term made much more sense. Stumbling over my tongue here.
They can't introduce too many characters. It gets so confusing after a certain point, especially when you're alternate universe. So
yeah, but it's when you do these as these little teaser characters on the side, the way they did with Singed at the end of every episode here.
That actually worked because we didn't know what the heck was going on with the wolf.
Also, Singed was in season 1. He showed up multiple times there as the Doctor.
Yeah.
All right.
The way you would have done this with Malzahar is you have him at the beginning giving the rune, and then somewhere at the end of the show having a little 5-second scene again. The way that you did the Thanos thing in the MCU, for example.
Maybe, but again, this goes back to we will in total have had 18 episodes of television for what should have been much, much more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We had to rush through the Noxians thing. The other thing I want to bring up before we move on too much is the child here, the deaf one, Isha. So this starts the problems with this character. She literally falls onto Jinx's lap in the last episode. She saves Jinx. She helps Jinx with her gun. She shakes a shot at the bad guy and all that. Okay. Now the child's following her around. And during this entire fight scene, the child is like calling shots for what's it called? Savika. It's like, hey, there's a sniper, go up there and take them. She's running around doing stuff. She's also setting up Jinx's traps, and she's also the reason that Jinx doesn't get shot by Kate. This kid, we have nothing about her, is just being put here as super important. It's very annoying because this kid only has more problems like this. She's an Allen wrench that solves all the problems that the show runs into. When a character in the Jinx, orbit can't solve a problem, this Isha girl can. And she's deaf, or it's not deaf, she's mute, so she can't say anything. So you look at this kid expecting some reactions, expecting some emotions, something, and we're not getting anything. It's a real strange choice for us to have a character who's so important that shows up so quickly and also make them mute. I don't know why you would do that. We get none of the interactions and none of the plot that you could have with this character. And we don't have enough time with them to understand them through the muteness.
I think that's where it would have made more sense to write her in a way where she would have just been another manifestation of Jinx's insanity.
Maybe. Yeah. I've seen characters like this in anime before with Suikoden 2 with a girl named Pilka, and she was also a mute because she was traumatized by the war and blah, blah, blah. But she ends up becoming like a surrogate sister to the main characters, and she never really talks until the end of the story. But she's always there to represent the things that they lost, that everyone has lost. This is this family orphan girl in the theme of war. So it makes perfect sense that she's just a girl, and she's just there to represent what we've lost, what we're missing, what we seek for. With this,
does she solve plot problems?
She has, in this case, Isha is like this a surrogate sister that Jinx never had, and she finds her humanity through her, and she can do
suddenly she becomes normal again,
something like that.
Because season 1, she kept going psychopath, but in season 2, she just seems to have regained herself. She has more control over herself.
It's like they were trying to make
Yeah,
the
it's a
Joker,
good
and then well, let's not do that anymore. We'll just make her a normal.
Yeah, but the Joker got raped in the ass, and after that, he just realized that he's
oh
just
my-
Arthur Fleck. Yeah.
All right. Let's
Why
move on.
didn't? Yeah, that's the answer. Why didn't they just rape him better? That would have solved the problem.
Oh boy.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
there's
Jesus.
so many characters for that.
Okay, let's keep going.
But wait. James wanted to say
Yeah.
something all this time.
I was just going to say, and this may be a bad take, but I do think Isha could have been written out and different reasons could have been put on why certain characters survive. Like, for example, I can't bring herself to kill Jinx because at the end of the day, she's still hurt. And here's the thing. I understand at a certain point you have to realize the people you love are gone. Like, that's something Vi's been telling herself throughout all of Act 1. My sister is gone. There's only Jinx. But I still think that there'd be a part of Vi full of guilt and wanting so desperately that things were normal that she'd try and make that excuse to be, as I said before, to bring Jinx to trial instead of killing her herself. And that could have given Savika the chance to hold the explosives and have them both get away.
Well,
but that's
yeah,
just me.
We see what happens later in the story of it just sort of goes away, and it's like, oh, they're fine now. It sort of just dissipates because Vander's back. Anyway, we'll get back to that later. Here's episode 4, Paint the Town Blue. Sometime after the declaration of martial law, a joint Piltovan-Noxian force has occupied Zon. Jinx has gone into hiding with Isha. Caitlin is now in a relationship with Maddie out of nowhere. And Jace, Echo, and Heimerdinger have been missing since they encountered the Wild Rune in the Hex Vault. However, Caitlin grows suspicious of Ambessa, who has successfully tried to conduct her own Hextech research. Savika tries to convince Jinx, who is seen as a hero by the Zonites, to lead a revolt. While Jinx refuses, Isha gets captured at a rally by enforcers led by Ambessa's right-hand man, Rictus. That's the guy with the beard, prompting her and Savika to break into Stillwater Hold to rescue her. Singe is also taken, but leaves a blood trail for his human-wolf hybrid to follow, causing it to attack the prison, slaughtering guards and inmates alike, and run into Jinx and Savika mid-rescue. Jinx fights the creature while Savika escapes with Isha, but is overpowered. Just as it appears to kill her, however, it suddenly recognizes her as Powder. Of course it does. So this is when I think things begin to go crazy. And
Yeah. And it's kind of disappointing because I felt like this is the point when it's gonna get interesting.
And it's the Singed's action makes zero sense to me unless he was suicidal in that, because he could not have predicted to be in prison at the right time.
plus it's
And whatever that would lead to, he's just because the Warwick character effectively wouldn't he have just killed Singed when he got to him?
well
Because it's his blood trail he's following.
Exactly.
Blood makes him crazy.
the way this works is he cuts his hand, and that blood from his hand causes Warwick to go crazy. And I'm like, why? Why would this happen? Because he's got the same blood pumping through his veins as well. Is this some, like, was there an explanation? What, he was conducting an experiment to cause long range smell psychosis? Like what?
No, that's just the blood that Warwick was tracing, and that was it. Like,
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's
how?
just blood that makes
Why?
him crazy.
What is?
Any blood.
Is it magic?
Science.
Yeah.
It was so.
Because he's a wolf.
I'm sorry, but like that was just so obvious. Like from the visuals, that it was just so that Warwick could chase.
But the way he
like,
chases him, he
can
gets
control-
into
he
an
can control the beast.
he gets into one of those ski lifts, and it's like, I'm gonna wait.
That was really silly. Yeah.
It's like, you're gonna wait? Really? You're that smart to just?
he was waiting patiently, like some kind of like taking the subway.
Yeah, dude, the elevator music in the background while he's beating the door down.
That was missing.
Well, have you ever seen those cats in Turkey that learn how to take the subway to work all day? That's just what he was.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the
yeah.
entire idea. Did Singe just want to get Warwick to Piltover to randomly kill people? What was the goal?
We learn
I
later
think
what.
the goal was to find. I really don't know, because like
Was it-
what I
was it
felt
then-
like was the doctor was looking for someone specifically, but was it Jinx?
But this is
like that was my idea from initially, that like he was looking for Jinx, but why was he looking for Jinx?
Well, the first
And then I
episode.
realized that like the plot itself, like the story itself, like forgot like why that scene was happening, because he then decided to just lock himself there.
Yeah, the first episode, at the end of each episode, actually, is some doctor dude. I thought it was Silco originally, but it's Singe, the doctor, hunts a pair of wolves, and then he pulls out this toxic canister, and it cuts to black, right? So, episode 2, he begins experiment on the organs of the wolves. You're like, oh, this is like a 10-second thing. It's very, very brief. Third episode, you see the giant wolf, and he's pumping his blood into the giant wolf creature. You're like, okay, that's weird. Fourth episode, then the giant wolf creature comes out and starts hunting him down, and I'm like, oh, was this like his backup plan? Was this the original plan? What does this do? And then we learn later on in the series, well, I won't talk about it now, it has nothing to do with any of this. This is all irrelevant. This is just something he's doing.
I think
And if I'm being
in the end, it's of course the look for eternal life or revive the dead thing. But my issue is what this looks like to me is this is the product of bad writing. For we need this character here, so let's have a reason why this character gets here, so that we can transfer the character into the other plot, and without thinking through what the initial reason to get the character on that track was.
Yeah. For me in particular, initially I thought Singed was like testing out Warwick as a potential soldier of sorts. Like, I need someone to help defend me and my future ventures, so I'm going to make this wolf beast. He's going to kill my enemies. He's going to deal with shit. And that's why I thought he was kind of testing him out to see if he could rescue him from certain situations. But
I like later in the story, like, we realized that like he was not really like creating like a furry army, because like he himself like despises those fucking creatures as well.
Well,
So
I wanted to know why he's like 3 times the size of Vander.
I think like this episode or the next one is when it's revealed, but I'm not gonna like blow it just yet.
Or that's just that he's a giant is similar to other Noxian juggernauts, as they clearly have those somewhere around. But the it's a similar writing problem as with the arm weapon that Jinx made. How can you just get this thing that does random things that you don't even know what they're gonna be, and win in a fight and not kill yourself in the process? It's the same problem.
I mean, speaking of that arm and Savika, when I thought that she lost that arm, I thought she was just going to go get a new one because, that's probably what you do. But it comes up later, and
Yeah, prosthetics seem to be
don't
around
have a-
everywhere there.
yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot of problems with the arm. I understand what you're saying, but for me, I felt like it was interesting, the idea of having something that's random, but at the same time, it would be better if you knew what was coming rather than not. But
Yeah, because she's never had this before. If it was any other arm, she would know how to use it. But this thing, you don't know what's coming, and well, you certainly can't tell by looking at what's coming out, because the slot machine is out of view for the user.
Well,
So she needs some other feedback system to know that. But it's just what I mean with how can this work just with the Warwick thing.
the main problem here is that it's contrived that this is part of Singe's features that he was experimenting on, as well as that it just so happened to be a giant murderous creature that cornered our antagonist and happens to be the person that Powder grew up with. And this continues throughout the entire series. It's just this contrived scenario that makes no sense how it came about. He's this unstoppable force, except when it comes to our antagonist. And you're like, oh, really? Oh, it happens to be the dad. Oh, really? Or the whatever you call it. Victor.
In general, this second season suffers a lot from and then.
Yes, it does.
yeah, I will say, Kai, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'd like to add a few things. Like, for example, what was Savika thinking holding a meeting in a public place with that many people? Why not with just the remaining faction leaders or the people of Zon who probably have some sway and who can rally people behind her as a united Zon? Why did it have to be a rally? I
I
felt like
think
that was a bit
because we
weird.
need to indulge in the and I have to go there for this because that's what it is, into the left-wing fantasy of having the rally of the people against the vile oppressors, the scene, have that fantasy satisfied.
I don't even think it's that complicated. I think it's just as simple as they rushed through everything. They had to get to this point because we have to get to the payoffs instead of, because I know that there's a reason for things to grab Vander. We know there is. And they barely hint at it. It seems like, oh, he's got a certain biology. It makes him harsh to kill and stuff. We didn't get any of the build-up to that. We had to immediately get to the point where he's fully into basically Warwick, and now we get to have him fight because we need to get to the payoffs what we have later on. It's just because the whole thing was rushed. If you allowed us to decompress and explain things, I guarantee there are answers to our questions, but they had to skip them because they rushed through everything.
Yeah, I could understand the scene better. It fit better if there were one or two, or up to 3 build-ups for it. And as you say, we would need more episodes. We would need more seasons where those things are the main plots in themselves. And the result of that, I think, was that during the TLJ or the one after, where I started calling this type of writing, I likened it to premature ejaculation. They are so obsessed with getting to their result that they never build up properly. They do the end then, which is and very soap opera-like stuff, and then always this too quick to the goal. It's like they're addicted to the dopamine of the release.
Okay.
I get what you're saying, but one last thing before I move on. Mbessa, she's spent months trying to crack hex tech, trying to make weapons out of it. Did the writers forget that Jace had blueprints in his lab that they probably would have checked to see where he was first? Like, you think Mbessa, given her position, would probably check out Jace's lab to see if there's any blueprints or notes to,
Mbessa didn't strike me as the Marv type.
I like how she was sacrificing random scientists in this room. It's like, what is going on in there?
I think that's actually another result of it being rushed. I think it looks like she's just making sacrifices to the blue god, when really it's these guys are in there like, I got this, buddy. I can do this. She's like, all right, go in there and fix it. And she's watching it again. I think it's supposed to emulate the first few people who discovered radiation, how they would just like juggle the radiation things, like, oh, this is kind of cool. I feel kind of tingly, like that same aspect that they don't know what they're getting into. They're not as professionally equipped as someone like Oppenheimer was, because like all the first people who touched radiation, like they died. In fact, like Mary Curie, the mother of radiation, her notes are still too radioactive for us to read. Like, that's how much she played with radiation. They just didn't know. And I think it was supposed to be that. But again, we just see her walk up, look at the guy, put on her cool goggles, watch her get evaporated, go, and another one, and walk away. So it feels like it's a sacrifice.
Does the air taste like
another
iron?
one?
All right. Here's episode 5, Blisters and Bedrock. Recognizing the beast.
I have some things to say.
Oh, go ahead.
I really the more I think about Vi and that whole thing, I do think we really need more scenes of her trying to reconnect with a few certain people, like Echo and the Firelights.
Yeah.
Trying to make a difference before we see her get to this point. But I had an idea on where they could have taken her if they had more time, but I won't get into that until you're done explaining things, Smut. Like explaining things and how this episode went, because I feel like my thing would take a little while.
All right. Okay.
And by a little while,
Here's the summary for episode 5. Recognizing the beast as Vander, Jinx seeks out Vi, who became a pit fighter following the falling out with Caitlyn. Of course she did. Though skeptical, Vi follows Jinx to an abandoned mine where Vander tracks and initially attacks them. However, he ultimately recognizes Vi, embraces her along with Jinx and Isha. Meanwhile, Mbessa hires Singe to track Vander, with Caitlyn deducing his true identity as expelled Piltovan academic Corin Revik, who created Shimmer as one of many attempts to cure his comatose and terminally ill daughter, Oriana. Elsewhere, Mel finds herself in a Black Rose prison, where she reunites with her supposedly deceased brother Kino, from whom she learns that Ambessa had an illegitimate child who is their captor's true target. She realizes this Kino is an illusion before being chained, causing her latent magical power to be unleashed. At the Hex Vault, Jace is released from the Wild Rune and encounters Salo, who was healed by Victor.
I'm lost.
I know. While retrieving a Hexgate core. Scarred by the experience, Jace vows to destroy Hextech before killing Salo. So, again, things get even more convoluted. We have a lot.
At least 5 episodes worth of plot here.
Yeah, and this entire thing with the Jace, actually, we have an entire episode dedicated to that.
We have bits and pieces of an episode that also is crammed with an entire season's worth of storyline for Echo.
Yes, that is true. But that's actually one of the best episodes of the season, believe it or not.
Oh,
It's the best
by
because,
far.
it doesn't screw everything up and you want more. Because it should have been a whole season, or at the very least a mini season arc, the 3 episode arc they do.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have seen Star Trek Voyager, the Year of Terror, I think it was called, that was supposed to be an entire season.
Year of Hell.
Year of Hell, okay. Where they just didn't get it greenlit as a season because it's too dark and that all people can't follow a progressing story and nonsense like that, which is what kept Voyager down as a whole, because it was supposed to be a progressing story with constantly changing crew and more damage to the ship. And Year of Hell would have been that, at least within the show. And then it just punched it down into 1 or 2 episodes.
Which was a stupid time loop bullshit. And not a time loop, but a time ending. Like the ending was, we just, everything was a dream. We just never happened.
Yeah, so that you can be serial again and continue next week to be the exact same thing, so that people who didn't watch the last few episodes, although why would Trekkies not watch the last few episodes, could still follow the show, which is, for a sci-fi show, absolutely insulting to its audience. But
anyway,
this here suffers of that problem on a higher level.
Well,
because you have, as you say, even more plots.
Yeah, we have this reveal of this magical group called the Black Rose, and because of the weird visual style of the Hex Core and whatever Victor is doing, we now have this illusionist person who does this even more, and you're like, okay, is this a magical world she's invented? Is this in Mel's brain? Like, what is visually, like, I don't know what anything is anymore. As soon as you tell me there's a magical wizard fellow who can make illusions. So it's hard to follow.
Was there even like foreshadowing in the first season? Because I can't remember.
The character's called Kino. Of course it's an illusion.
Exactly. It's her brother. So the idea that other people have magic is definitely talked about in season 1. It's referenced and brought up that other nations deal with magic, and Piltover's unique, that it doesn't have mages, and that's uniquely because Heimerdinger understands it. That's also why they have guns, and everybody else has swords, though. They specifically call that part out, which I think is a good thing if you're writing a fantasy story. Why they didn't get conquered by these wizards, because they got shotguns, and, well, bullets hurt. The idea that this illusionist has the things, I don't think the illusionist having the illusion powers is an issue. I think, like Smud was saying, I think, chat, you need to understand, she's put in this fake cylindrical room that she can walk around in and, like, feel the walls. She can then touch buttons as they come out, and she starts solving a button puzzle to steal these things. Which, for the record, if I woke up in a room and my brother, who's been dead for 10 years, was in here, and he said, "Hey, I've been stuck in here for 10 years because, the Satan decided to lock me in here," and then I find a button puzzle within 3 seconds, and he has no idea what it is, I would be very suspicious. Also, as an illusionist, and somebody who runs D&D, illusions are very tough to get right. It's very difficult to write illusions in a way that doesn't feel like an ass pull, which is what this feels like. And that's because you have to make it so the illusion is somewhat believable. A lot of times, characters, where they want to, or writers, where they want to do illusions, will put the character in a similarly shaped room and let the objects that they interact with be real, because it doesn't break the audience's assumption of what the illusion is. Or they'll put something like a false door there, so the character thinks that there's no door when really it's a wall. If they walked into it, they would find out. This show, when she wakes up from it, We see that Mel's just in like the middle of the jungle with like 4 swords stabbed in the ground around her. I kind of don't care what magic you have. If that's the power like you could pull off here, there's no reason for you to be as scared from anybody as you are here. Never mind the whole we could pull you into the Blackthorn dimension stuff. That's just a separate issue. Just the illusion magic here is, yeah. And a body swap is hard to do right too. Kind of. What you should have done is what I would have done if I was writing the scene. The bump, like the weird, I don't know what you even call the hole in the ground she's in. The hole in the ground that she's in, that would have been real. However, her brother would have just been the illusion, wizard that we have here. That would have just been her just pretending to be Kino the whole time. And then when Ambessa finds out, she just quickly shoots out of the ground, or she has a jetpack under her shoes or something, some way she can escape quickly. And Mel can escape with that, way, grabbing her or on another way out. That's how I would have done it.
Maybe Mel could have used her new powers to
absolutely
escape
not. Mel shouldn't be using her powers at all to get out of there.
And she's she's like Sue Storm or whatever her ability. I don't even know what she does exactly.
She creates barriers basically. So she's very like Sue Storm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also will say the Jace we see in this act is different than the one we see in Act 3, in my opinion. Also, I was hoping I could bring up the flashback with Silco, Vander, and Vi and Jinx's mom. A lot of people seem to have a problem with it, and I can't fully see why, personally.
Who does? Honestly, like I thought like that was normal.
Yeah, I mean, I know apparently EFAP or whatever had some problems with it.
They don't matter. They are just a bunch of faggots. We don't care about them.
What scene did they have a problem with?
The flashback scene with Silco, young Vander, and Vi, Jinx's mom.
That scene was. I have a lot of problems with that scene too. You kidding me? When we place the scene, now we're getting this information. The idea that Blisters and Bedrock is a saying that they would have had to each other, it shows up this episode where it becomes important. Yeah, that's dumb. That's very poor character writing. At the very least, if you're going to have the whole, Blisters and Bedrock was their saying, and you didn't write it for season 1, you should have had that in another flashback earlier in the season. So when it shows up here and at this point, we can be like, that's why Blisters and Bedrock is important. It just shows up here and it suddenly is relevant here. And I'm supposed to know what this phrase is. That's the problem with it. It's also very interesting how, I don't know, the writing of the whole flashback was off. It was much more, because it was rushed, utilitarian than you expect it to be. It kind of goes in exactly the parts it needs to go into, and there's no character moments. We don't just really see a lot of development. Except Silco looks kind of more like a bitch than he did beforehand. He's much more wimpy and conciliatory to the other two people in the thing, which doesn't make sense. I feel like even old Silco was a little bit more pushy before the whole Vander tries to kill him thing.
I mean, maybe, but I guess my whole thing with that scene is it doesn't really do too much damage to the characters, in my opinion. Silco, but I could imagine Silco before the Vander incident would be probably radical, but not an asshole, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? He has his old friends. Now, some people ask, why would he kill Vi and Jinx if they were his godchildren? And I was just saying, he was willing to kill his former best friend and children in order to gain his goals. I don't think killing his godchildren would be that far.
You're kind of right. It was paced. This flashback scene was placed weirdly, but at that point, I really didn't give a damn about where that scene is.
I will any show can bring itself back and have good moments. We'll talk about episode 7 as an example. Had I written the show off as bad, it has problems.
Definitely.
Episode 7 is definitely the best of the whole season, and
Agreed.
And even so, it still has problems. I'm not going to let it get away with things. Any minor thing that's really good or really interesting. For example, I do want to say, I know it's further in the episode, but when Jace is trying to turn off the Hextech device, and Sallow's there and he takes the stuff, you can already see that he's not alive anymore. He's a robot. Because Jace's breath creates fog. Sallow doesn't. That's a really interesting hint there to tell you immediately, hang on a second, he's not alive anymore. Why is he not making the smoke? Why is it not the smoke, the cloud? That's a great moment in the show that's not even given attention to by the rest of the show. I bet most people even see that. And when I noticed that, I immediately I was watching with my dad a few hours ago. Like, did he make a breath? And my dad's like, I don't know. We skipped back and we saw him. And he's like, no. And my dad's like, is he dead? That's weird. Last time we saw him, he was crying about being crippled. So yeah, it tells you immediately what's going on or what the results are going to be if you pay attention. So subtle things like that can still get you in.
My problem with that scene is why would a Victor ever do that? Like, because
Victor doesn't
we
know.
missed so much. What do you mean?
Victor doesn't think they're
What do
dead.
you mean?
So this is going to be a little bit mean. I guarantee that most of the people who have a problem, or the problem that you're going to have, James, with Victor's plot, haven't read enough sci-fi. Because the idea, and this is a very prominent thing in a lot of sci-fi, that humanity will achieve, or any race will achieve a point where we give up part of our personal, like, bodies to have machines run things for us, and that's a good thing, or is it a good thing? That, the what part of you is you philosophy comes about there importantly. And Victor very clearly has this idea that your body can be a machine, but your soul is still intact. Whether he's right about that, because I don't think he's actually right, as was shown by the show, I don't fault him for having that philosophy. In fact, if you're in my server, you know that this has been a huge argument that we've been having for months now because we have many sci-fi authors in the server, and this is a good topic of discussion. It's one of those things that sci-fi can uniquely explore that fantasy really can't. This show, of course, still had to make them robots for it to work. It's very hard to talk about what if you can willingly give up your body, are you still a human? And I think that's one of the things that Victor was going off of. He answered the question with, yes. So why wouldn't you want to be a 14-foot tall, hulking death robot who is immortal? That makes perfect sense. If I could make your body never bleed, you never are hungry, you never experience all the bodily aches and groans, you can't get sick anymore, but your spirit is still actually there, why wouldn't you accept that? And that's Victor's philosophy.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I understand what you're saying, kid, and it's more I kind of wish I could see that progression because when we last saw him, he still seemed pretty human. He just wanted to get rid of suffering. Now, of course, that could lead to the robotic thing, but I do feel like we need a little bit more time, and that's something I kind of wanted to touch on with the whole how I felt like the whole vibe.
That entire philosophical issue, whether it's tackled by religion, fantasy, or science or sci-fi, is so big. That should be the main focus of just one season. It has so many aspects. It has so many aspects to it, as well as with what are you overlooking about what is actually human.
Well, they tried to do
suffering. How much suffering shapes you?
They tried to do the result of that of Victor's idea in the story, but it was just the end result, not the journey there and the philosophy behind it.
Yeah.
Again, in the game, Victor's just some Russian-sounding dude who likes steel, and the hex core is this little thing growing at the back on his back and has a mind of its own, and that's it. He shoots death rays. That's it. That's all he does. So to give him this weird messiah-like persona is like, where did this come from? Is it? I thought it was the void. I thought it was some alien force. I thought it was.
Yeah, I thought like it was some kind of parasite. Like the funny thing is, like I don't know, Smud, if you have ever played System Shock 2.
Yeah.
Okay, so like there's a Russian guy in that game. Like he's a minor antagonist, but like basically the many has a parasite entity, and it's just infecting all these crew on that ship. And Victor talks exactly like that guy, like the way like he's talking about like this unity and such. It's almost like the creators have played that game and they wanted to make like a show about it, because it doesn't really like fall in line with like what's in the game.
I think both are more like a reference to the Borg, likely, because the Borg is one of those first times in sci-fi where that mainstream audiences.
Like there's like a long like way before the Borg, but yes, it's kind of like the hive mind aspect of it. Yeah,
right. But that's why I said mainstream.
Yeah.
What is it with characters and people in history who have trouble relating to other people who long for the collective consciousness? Because Victor definitely has trouble relating to other people as well.
Yeah,
I
this
think
is a
it's actually-
common theme in
Yeah,
fantasy and science fiction where the antagonist wants everyone to be the same. We all can achieve peace if we're all like blah, blah, blah. We've heard
So Arcane Season 2 is actually just very base conservative art, trying to tell us that communism is never going to work.
Yes.
Well, anyway, back
Well, no, that's the
to
thing, though.
I love Arcane Season 2 now.
back to episode
Think
5.
about it correctly. Arcane shows that communism did work. It worked too well. That's the problem. If you look at the end result, everybody died of starvation.
No,
Well, yes, but overall, that is what. Oh God! If you want to fry your brain, look into the occult beliefs of communism that are beneath the economy propaganda. It's way more wacky than the World Ice Fury of the
Alright,
Nazis.
alright.
I
Anyway.
live in it.
back to episode 5.
Beautiful.
The thing I didn't like was the fact that Vander recognizes again Vi and Jinx as Powder a second time.
It feels like we see the same scene twice.
It's the
That's-
same sort
the
of
same-
contrived. Oh, he's about to butcher them all instantly, and all of a sudden, the last millisecond, he's like, "Oh, my surrogate daughters." You're like, "Oh yeah, you're human." I think.
And then black music is playing in the background.
It's. We've seen this before. If this is going to be a theme of him remembering his past and redeeming himself and trying, would he sacrifice himself? Would he kill himself? Blah blah blah. That never happens. It's just a thing they did again, and you're like, "This is it," and it just goes along with, "Oh, now we have our dad back. What do we do, Jinx? Well, let's go work together to help him." It's like, okay, and you're like, "Really? We're just gonna forget all the crap that happened in the past year? We're just all the murders, all the friends, everything. We're just gonna forget about that to help this one crazy beast man who's about to kill you." It's very odd, and and when it comes down to it, I'm not sure what the point of it all was. It's unless just to get all the characters together to have a standoff.
I think again,
That's the point.
This is the result of a rush plot point.
Yeah. And I honestly feel like if they had more time, and this is just my recommendation, but let's say Vi suffers the same losses. She can't go to the Firelight. She can't go back to Caitlyn. She believes Jinx is lost. I feel like she could do the spiral thing, but still be a good person. Like she becomes a vigilante using her gloves to fight off evil. And
No, I
eventually,
like her as a pit fighter. Last time I got into a divorce, I ended up becoming a warrior for Allah, so it works out for everything.
That entire, I was like, it starts off. You see the montage of her fighting. You're like, what is going on? Why did she dye her hair? Why is she doing this? No explanation. Just
I don't think she dyed her hair. She just stopped washing.
oh yeah, she died.
If as a
If
pit
she just has, like,
fighter,
black
she,
all over her
Extreme
face and
dandruff.
Yeah.
she at
I'm
least
so
has
distraught.
some
My
sort
girlfriend dumped me. I'm gonna go beat some guys up. You're like, what?
of typical lesbian relationship. But if she had at least had some sort of power gloves in the pit, I could buy it. But because she's fighting these big burly guys. Because if you had a male character fighting the big burly guys, he would still have trouble.
So I'm just gonna say this: did you see the end of episode 9? The very last scene where her and Caitlyn, let's just say for PG reasons, make up.
I see.
That
I saw
body
the
was not
Chinese
the body of
version.
a girl. That body was
I
not
am-
the body of a girl. That's all I'm gonna say.
No,
Okay.
they changed
I
the
have so
model
many
for that
problems with
scene.
episode
I-
8, I
My
swear to God.
roommate, who's like a health nut, he's like 200 pounds, with rippling with muscle. His body doesn't look like hers did at the end of that scene.
You could see that already in season 1. They did beat the characters with the ugly stick. And if you look at the voice actress of Caitlyn, they put her face on Caitlyn's model. It's a self-insert. Anytime you see these uglified characters, it's a self-insert of someone on the
Her
staff.
physical ability, like I fully believe Vi could go into the pits. I don't think she could win all those fights that we saw, but I think that her being a competitor, totally. Because you also have to understand, she trained as a pugilist since she was like 10. So I
Okay,
can
at the-
definitely see her. She's
I
the
remember-
only person I could see being able to take a fist like that. She should have probably lost a couple more fights. I'll give you that. But I get this is because it's a montage. And we only get like 12 seconds here. We get to see her drinking with not Vander like 4 times, and then Jinx is in the crowd. Like that was way too quickly for me to be like, oh, I see what's going on here.
Yeah. I do agree at the end of the show she has Abby arms, and that is pretty impossible for her build to achieve. as a female.
All right. Anyway, let's get to episode 6 now. Okay. Here's the message hidden within the pattern. Victor and the spiritual essence of Sky, whatever that means, investigate the wind rune phenomenon after witnessing Salo's murder. That was a great sentence.
A wild rune.
Jinx, Vi, and Isha take Vander to Victor's sanctuary in the hopes he can be healed. Across several days, Victor begins to draw out Vander's humanity. With Singe's help, Ambessa and Caitlin track Vander down to the sanctuary. Singe attempts to persuade Victor to give Vander up, but Victor refuses, seeing that Singed only wishes to save Oriana. While tailing Singed as he wait, her name is Oriana?
Yes.
Oh my god, I didn't even
I didn't catch that in the show.
Yeah.
I only put that together from the last scene where you see her, the girl's face in the mirror with Singed sitting beside her, and it was clearly a husk and not a human girl anymore.
Oh, I didn't know that. Weird. While tailing Singed, yeah, as he returns to the Noxian camp, Vi is intercepted and captured by Caitlin. Ambessa orders Caitlin and Singe to reverse Victor's efforts. It is revealed Vi and Caitlin have worked together, and they neutralize both Ambessa and Singed. Haunted by his experience in the Wild Rune, Jace infiltrates the sanctuary and kills Victor, provoking a physical backlash from the people Victor healed, including Vander, who becomes uncontrollably savage, killing Rictus. Ambessa recovers and charges into the sanctuary with her soldiers. Isha overloads Jinx's pistol with Hextech gems and sacrifices herself to destroy Vander and the Noxian soldiers to Jinx's despair. Okay, so this episode was the culmination of all this psychedelic stuff going on, and it's very not hard to follow, but it's just sort of like, why is this happening? Why did Ambessa get all this stuff to hold up Caitlin and stop Victor's efforts? Why did Jace blow away Victor and Victor's still alive? Why did Victor? Yeah. Why was he flying in the air and connected to all these tubes? What was going on? We don't know what was happening. There was a lot of unexplained stuff, and I don't know. Is Jace possessed? Is he crazy? We don't know. And I don't even think
that works. That part works as when he comes out of the Wild Rune. There's several versions of Jace joining together. This is the one that comes out. So the first thought I had was, this is not the actual Jace, or this is Jace who went through his 1 million years long adventure and now he's all rugged.
Well, this was then somewhat explained in the next episode, but just as is, you're like, we don't know what's going on. He's getting these headaches. He's freaking out. He's very violent and emotional. And you're like, what? Okay, this is not good. He has a beard, so he's been gone for a long time. We don't know exactly how long.
He grew the right beard.
I act like that when I wake up every morning. It's just he has a bad night.
Yeah, just blah.
Honestly, this was the best version of Chase. He finally took action and started killing these faggots.
And he's got this.
But he still had his chef outfit on.
And his hammer is like all. I thought it was all voidified. It was all jacked up. I had no idea what the hell happened to it. I thought it was alive.
It's the evolution hammer.
The illusion hammer. Yeah. It was the arcane hammer. I don't know what the magic is anymore. I don't know what's going on with technology and magic. It's all
wongified.
Yeah, we don't know. So
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so this entire thing ended with the supposed death of Victor for whatever reason, we don't know. And it just was this massive art. I don't know if you watched Ghost in the Shell Innocence. It was the second Ghost in the Shell movie. This is what it felt like. You're on this weird journey. You're like, what is happening? Who is this guy? Where is Victor in subspace? Did he make this world? Is he part of this world? Is he dreaming? Half the time you don't know what's going on, essentially, and it's very weird. And this is the problem I have with dreamscapes in any story. You have to explain what is going on, and they never ever do. They make allusions and mentions to the arcane, but we don't know what that is. And all I'm going on is, well, the void is
Noxus.
Like Noxus, we don't know exactly what Noxus is, aside from what Ambessa says. So we're just sit there going, I don't know who and what is going on. Do people die? Is Victor dead? Is he no longer human? Is he no longer part machine? Like, is he a machine? No, he's not. He's some organic weird thing, but it's described as steel in certain descriptions. Like his body is steel, but he never talks about it. It's never mentioned. Sometimes he's white, sometimes he's gray, sometimes he's black. His color changes. Then there's the psychedelic version of Victor, which is like, I don't know, a Dune vision. He's like
You're white.
Muad'Dib having these visions of the cosmos. You're like, oh my God. So there's lots going on that's unexplained. And the art style is, again, like Innocence. It's visually striking. It's gorgeous. It's flowery. It's colorful. It's a kaleidoscope. But because of that, you don't know what's going on.
And the big problem the show has is you can maybe do work with everything is illusion as long as the whole thing is just a love letter to the fans. But that would also require that you have a solid lore behind it, which League of Legends doesn't really have because they keep changing it every time they bring in a bunch of new characters. So the other thing is we want to bring in more people, new people into the game and pay for stuff through this show that stands the test of time, which doesn't work if you do not even give the basic explanations of everything. You do not need to give the full annoying exposition about everything, but this show is missing even the basics to be properly clear cut. It needs to be non-confusing on the basics, and that it doesn't do.
I think this could have been fixed if the first time Victor was in the Aether, if he talked to Sky a little bit, because she seems to be a little bit of a guide. She could have said, "Oh, this is the Aether, Victor. I've been waiting for you here. I've been stuck here since the rune went off." And this would also clear up all the problems we had. But again, we don't have time for that. We have to rush on to things. If we just put the issues with the mindscape aside for a second and just assume that it just works the way it works over there, which we'll get to that because episode 9 has some weird stuff going on with that mindscape.
I think we can fix this if we just scrap everything, start from the beginning with the Egyptian gods and the space dragon telling us about rune terror, what the fuck this nonsense even is, and what runes are, and why there's none in Piltover properly, and why the mages should care about guns.
Yes, mages should care about guns. Put magic in your gun. So, the actual issue that we, as you know, going into this episode, it's not just this weird spiritual stuff, because afterwards, when Jinx, Vi, and Isha take Vander there, or not Vander, whichever one is with Victor, none of them are really as suspicious as they should be. They're all kind of like fine. Everybody seems to be fine with everybody having metal all over them. That's something that is another really weirdly glossed over thing. I can understand for people who had physical injuries and physical ailments, which, by the way, this is one of the reasons that I think leads to Victor being the character who's more okay with the robotic replacements, because he needed machines already to function. So to him, it's very logical. It's just their strength, and they just hand Vander over. Fine. I know they hang around them, and they have to give their guns, but it's like, I don't know. It just feels weird to me how we were immediately all back in this buddy clique. How, Jinx and Vi are just hanging out together. They didn't even really talk about what happened. It's. What are you guys thinking about that?
It's the same with Caitlyn and Vi. When they hook up, it's like, what? There's
that's another problem later on. The same episode. They just rush past
I have so many problems with that scene. But one of the things that came to mind after I saw Vi and Victor meet, even though it's very minimal and they don't feel very suspicious, as Kid said, which more I think about it, they perhaps should have been. But this is just a theoretical. But what if instead of this whole Vander war, like if they had more time, could they have done Vi working with Victor? Trying to make the Undercity better.
I would not have done that. Victor needs to be his own independent faction for what happens later on. He should not have relations to anybody.
Wasn't he a Freljord character?
Jace.
Say again?
I feel.
Wasn't he a Freljord character originally, or am I mixing that up?
Victor, no. He was... where the hell did he go? Yeah, I think he was yeah.
Yeah, but I guess my and this may just be me, but I just the idea of Vi being down on her luck, being depressed, and then Victor kind of showing some ray of hope.
Well, Victor can't do
Or
that though. Look, anybody in Victor's camp has been Victorified and zombified.
yeah, I'm just saying in a longer show where that wasn't fully the case. But you're right.
Yeah,
In
no,
this
they,
case,
they
it could have
walk
been
into a
more.
cult and they're like, yeah, this is normal. This is fine. You're like, really?
Yeah, it's weird. There's a cult here, especially because nobody outside the cult it goes into their compound, and nobody who leaves really seems to be not, robotified.
Oh, yeah. Remember when the ambassador walks up to, what's his name? He's the gatekeeper guy. He's completely calm. He's completely confident. They have this entire army just staring down at him. He's like, I'm sorry, you have to leave your weapons. He's just doing his job.
Like a robot.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He's like, sorry, you can't come in unless you leave your weapons. Like, okay.
ChatGPT, it can't understand me.
Well, more like husks, because
Yeah.
they can all immediately be taken over by Victor. So I'm not even sure whether, when they show their original personalities, if altered, is that still them in the first place, or is there just a remnant roleplay going on?
I think it is still them there, and this goes back to questions of, well, how do I put this? It is and it isn't still them in there. This is a question of the soul and the brain. Humans, our physical bodies are definitely mechanical, and you can, screw with them. So theoretically, if you had like a battery pack on your brain that turned it on and it would still function after you were dead, it would still have all the same nerve endings and the same like feelings that you would have. So theoretically, you could have like that flesh puppet be you still, but then you have the questions of spiritually is it you? And I think that's the issue here.
And what we
because
know
it'll-
from what we know from science so far is that the brain is not even enough. We need the entire nervous system, because we have several further nerve clusters that do relevant jobs by themselves autonomously, and the communication with the intestinal brain, if you will, is also relevant in that feedback system. And
Sure, but let's
so
just
if you
put that
only
aside
if,
for a second, this is a spiritual question. That's what
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
trying
but
to figure out
that
here, because that's what's related to the runes and the fact that Victor's in that weird spiritual realm. That's the real question: is the physical meat puppet body, or is there spirit still in there?
yeah, but then the
Yeah,
question
there's
is
also-
why do spirits need bodies?
I don't know in this
And-
show. I can answer that in real life. I could talk if we want to get into talk about Christianity. We'll have to probably do a different stream. We can't call it Arcane Season 2 anymore, but we're more than welcome to. But in this show, I got no idea because we rushed past all that stuff. And we see a little bit of it in episode 9, where there's very clearly like it shows people's spirits and how your spirits link to other people. Oh, we lost keyframe.
Yeah, it's late.
Okay.
But yeah, we
Uh,
see that's linked to in episode 9. I don't know if or how it is an arcane like one that was right now. I don't know if these vessels are. I would think not, especially at the very end. I would think they're not linked when they get their full form. But I'm not sure if right now how they are linked up.
All
I
right.
mean, for me,
James?
I was just going to say, I agree with, like, the more I think about it, I guess, the whole idea, like, a lot of Victor's cult's mannerisms make a lot more sense now. And the whole thing is, I really wish we could have seen Victor discover all of this and see his reactions and perhaps come to terms with some of what he's doing to some of these people, turning them into almost automatons and
I don't think he's doing that on
rationalizing,
purpose. I don't
controlling
think
the
he
people.
knows he's doing that. I think from his perspective, they're just normal.
I wish we could have seen that almost progression, is all I'm
He
saying.
says that though to Jace in episode 9.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you're right. But yeah.
It took
That
him a
was
couple of millennia to
wonderful.
realize.
Definitely, Rick's philosophy is not weird to understand. It's just we don't understand how we got there, sure, and we don't understand the nuances of it, yeah. But what he wants and what he believes in is very clearly laid out in episode 9. I wish it was laid out here. We needed it laid out earlier so we understand what's going on right here in episode 6. But it is there in episode 9.
kind of got what he wanted to do. Like, he wanted to eliminate all pain, and thus he thought the only way to do it is to become all one. That I understood that, but as you said, I wish it was set up a little bit more. That's kind of it.
All right. Well, there's not much to talk about
Yeah.
with episode 6 aside from the problems, and it's pretty obvious what they are. So I think we can
Mhm.
move on to episode 7.
Yeah,
Yep.
most of the problems in episode 6 are just bouncing around and inconvenient alliances. That's the best way to summarize it. Oh, we should talk about the child killing herself. Isha. So Isha's
Yeah.
sacrifice is really dumb. I don't know
Mhm.
why it was supposed to be as impactful as it was. We haven't gotten to know this character well enough.
She had a bad role model in Jinx.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
And I don't
That
get
that is
how-
what
Yeah,
reflects
the
here.
terrorist does-
I don't get how Isha, what
Yeah.
she's learned and done, would think this would help at all, or why her character would do this thing. You know, the idea I'm going to cram 3 blue balls into the gun, and it's going to make a nuclear explosion that kills everybody but doesn't.
But she
Yeah,
does. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
She took the Hex Tech core from, I think, Vi's Gauntlet, and she put that.
It's assumed to be Vi's Gauntlet, but it's weird because Jinx clearly has extra baubles somewhere.
Yeah.
Because she uses those, she has more of those balls later on. So it's very clear she has backups of these things. So it's I don't know if the kid had them or if she got them from Vi's Gauntlets. 'Cause there's a shot where she looks back at Vi's Gauntlet, specifically the blue hex core part. So it's like, maybe, but I can't tell. 'Cause,
Yeah.
we
I
rushed
mean,
her.
that I could kind of tell after a second watch. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on
I-
to episode 7. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. Let's go. Pretend like
The
it's
best
the
episode.
first time. This is Act 3. After the events of the Hex Vault, Echo and Heimerdinger find themselves in a parallel universe where Hextech was never invented. Milo, Clagor, and Benzo are still alive, and Vander and Silco are on good terms, though Vi died during Jace's apartment robbery. Ooh. To return home, the two work with this universe's Powder, who never became Jinx, to recreate the Wild Rune and channel it into a time reversal device. During this time, Echo grows close to Powder, but ultimately still decides to return to his own universe, despite the device proving unstable. Heimerdinger successfully returns Echo to the cost of vanishing himself, his fate unknown. Meanwhile, Jace is transported to a post-apocalyptic future where Hextech was wiped out, Piltover, and reunites with the hooded figure who gave him the runestone as a child. Learning his future is a result of Victor's actions, Jace promises to stop him before being sent back by the figure, leading to the events at the sanctuary. So I think this is, out of all the episodes, this is my favorite, not because it was the most revealing, or at least the most, it's a change of pace from all the craziness that just happened. It's the easiest to comprehend. I knew exactly why things were happening. Even the dance scene was, it's like, oh, the animators know what they're doing, and they know it so well, they're going to do a time stop collage, which I thought was kind of cool. The music was okay. There was lots
Actually, the dance scene has a huge problem in it. Because the song's in French, it confirms France exists.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a tragedy. It's a 2 out of 10 episode because of that.
Yeah, I know. It's like, wait a second, there's France in this world? Okay, why not? Okay. So, but aside from the anachronistic stuff that shouldn't belong, it does build up Echo as the time guy, because we had no idea how he got his time powers. So that's a good little, if that was just for Echo, it'd be perfect. It does show an alternate reality so that this hex core can throw you across different dimensions. So it's okay, we know what it could do. And Heimerdinger just nonchalantly sacrifices himself. That was kind of odd. And a lot of cool things happened in here. So it was one of those like lulls in the story, which probably should have happened like early on, because this is right after a huge explosion. And we have to explain why Jace is Jace now, because Jace is all messed up. And this does that for us. So it gives us the exposition we need.
I think that the reason this is here is because because they have no time. They wanted to sync up the Echo plot with the Jace plot for the Portal plotline people. That episode could have been anywhere, if you will, in the plot line. However, they needed Jace to be psycho crazy, punish Jace, kill Victor, for that payoff to happen, so we can then get the explanation. Because if you watch this first, you're like, oh yeah, of course he's got to go kill Victor. That's the only possible solution. Whereas you don't get the impact from that. Now you get to have the impact, of Victor getting 86th, and we get to see his logic as to why. And I will say this episode, more than any other episode in the entire show, should have been its own season. At the very least, its own 3-episode arc.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because
I agree.
because Jace is like, they have this collage of Jace eating something and then struggling. He leaves his hammer behind. And I was thinking, is this going to be a time loop? I was like, what are they going to do with this? And he starts he makes himself a metal brace, and he's going through the pretty much this graveyard of Piltover. Finally, we don't even know what he's doing, but he's climbing up to the tower at the top, and we see the character there, who is him with his hammer, and I'm like, wait a second, how does that work? Like, there's some questions I didn't quite grasp, but then they reveal that later on, how that works. They don't know who he's chasing. It's some guy. We assume it's Victor, but we don't know. And that's it. That's the whole thing. He just has to climb up and up and up. So it's this ongoing.
Well, also, there are those weird robot zombies, which is the first time we see them. They're much more emaciated and rotted away, and they're definitely looking around being creepy. I do think it's very dumb that he fell in a hole and broke his leg. So that was why he didn't have to move for the whole time, and he just sat there suffering. I get the logic that you want him to sit there and suffering, but him breaking his leg and being stuck in a hole without any food or water was a very interesting, let's say, writing choice.
Oh yeah, and the collage is just him eating some goop of some animal that he killed. It's like, what's happening? And it's so quick, you don't know what.
And he killed the animal with a busted leg.
And he's all.
The thing is, I kind of like the scene because it showed Jace stuff. I kind of get what they wanted to do with it. Wanted to show Jace regretting all of his actions and slightly going crazy.
But it didn't happen.
Could have been done a little bit better.
But the thing,
I think that the pacing failed at how many days it seemed to imply.
Yeah, we didn't know, but it was a long time. His beard was very big, so I was like, okay, he's not emaciated, but he's all like psychotic. He's like really losing sleep. He's lost his weapon. He's just climbing. His whole job is to climb, and we don't know why. So it's like, okay.
Somehow he later found stuff to make fire with.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know where this came from. And those weird zombie things that are like trees, they just come alive when they see Jace. You're like, what does that mean?
At least at the end, it makes sense why they didn't attack him, because Victor was preventing them from.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the story with Echo was great.
Give it
It made sense. Fish out of water scenario, and I just liked the dynamic between him and him freaking out over Jinx going, oh, what do you do? Oh, wait.
The Echo stuff? Echo part was fantastic. I think that this was one of the more interesting ways you could set up for an alternate reality. The what if Vi had died, and the results of that. There's so many subtle hints throughout this episode that really would have made a fantastic few episodes here. Like Silco's here. He's just hanging out being friendly with them now. The Undercity is definitely freed as Zahn and is treated as an equal to Piltover. And it's pretty obvious to see like how that would result, but I wanted to see the negotiations of what happens because of Vi's death. What does this change? What does this lead to? I
did like the detail that Marcus bursted into the scene, and he was horrified, as anyone would be, showing that perhaps he started to change his tone about Piltover. I mean, Zahn, where, and people say like the kids should have gotten in trouble for breaking into the apartment. Who said they didn't? For one, and B, I feel like a lot of Piltover would probably feel a lot of sympathy for Zahn afterwards, because this would be very in their front view mirror.
Well, again,
they probably,
we see this a lot in even our reality. When a bunch of, just say urban youths do some hood stuff and they get away with it, it's like, oh, that sucks. People get mad about it. But if one of them dies in the middle of it, it becomes a lot more tragic. And I think you could very easily spin Vi's death in this situation. Like, a lot of the people on the surface are upset. Like, these guys are stealing scrap to try to get by. Why? And why did we let this happen to them? And then you have, at the same time, with Silco and then him realize, like, dude, I screwed up. I let my friend's daughter get killed. I need to go reconcile, the situation with Vander, or maybe Vander mans up and delivers the letter that he's had. And says, Silco, look, I meant to deliver this to you before she died. We need to fix this. And then the two of them work together, and they go negotiate with the surface. You could easily have that. It's because it's been a decade since when she would have died. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff here that you could have gone through. And it's just a tragedy that this is all we get to see.
Yeah, I live more in the
weird stuff going on with Milo and Clagger, because Milo's hitting on the girl episode at the beginning of the episode, and at the end of episode 2, Milo and Clagger are hanging out like Destiny and Nick Fuentes. A little weird.
Oh God.
He's like, if you don't remember, go watch that last clip again. He's like hanging all over him. I'm sitting like, bro, there's girls that I've, let's just say for YouTube's sake, had special time with that I've not been that close to.
Well,
it's very weird how who's on top. Clagger's definitely on top. He's all man and
yeah. And people in the chat had a similar idea. Elivmo says Vice Dev creates a utopia. Who knew? And that's a lot of people dying in this conflict, and yeah, she would be a key figure. This is really interesting. So better timeline.
On accident, because it makes it so Jace probably gets a harsher punishment. And because he gets a harsher punishment, he can't research Arcane, which means Victor can't get to any near the Hex Tech technology at all either. Which is
in the first place,
and then Victor dies probably.
Yeah,
because of his disease.
Which is another way to solve the problem, so that he wouldn't even. This should be explored more, because this way Victor doesn't need the whole time loop dimension thingy.
Just goes back.
Just have Vi die.
Victor
There's
dies
so
naturally.
many ways to solve this.
Okay.
And but on that scene at the top where Jace takes the hammer, that's where they could have put a little dot on the I, because Victor explains the whole thing about, I tried all these runes throughout these timelines and none worked. Always ended in the same outcome. They could have, since they were doing these quick flashes in many parts of the show, I expected that right there you would have a collage. Is that the right word? Of 5, 6, 10 times of Jace picking up the hammer and ending up in the new in the new place as the new husk. Because that's essentially what you could say happened there.
I agree, and I think that would have been really fantastic. Yeah. Like I think the Jace, I guess, segments should have been at least their own episode. We should have had a whole episode of Jace dealing with these things and seeing, like you said, you could have done some really interesting stuff where we see Jace fail and die, and then it cuts back to before he failed and died, and he just doesn't do that same action. So now we as the audience think, is there time travel going on? And really, we're just seeing it from, I guess we'll spoil it for chat, the Man in White's Victor. We see, Super Victor up there watching what's going on. Where it's like, I see all these situations that are happening, and he's seen all the Jaces fail to get to this point, or how they failed, which would be really interesting and fascinating as a concept.
Without going into the August 8 of Haruhi scenario, that would be terrifying for most people. Anyway.
Except me.
I would say I feel like the episode adds a lot to both characters, even though some of the stuff is a little bit a bit weird. I do find it believable that Echo would still have some feelings and other stuff towards the people in this dimension, even the alternate powder. Because we had seen him hesitate to kill her before, obviously showing that he cared for her to an extent. So I really liked how they illustrated that here.
Yeah, his old friend, his old boss, like that's where he grew up, working in that shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just very human, some of his reactions. Especially when seeing Benzo again. He's just like, oh my god, he's alive.
Yeah,
And then
this
he just hugs
was
him
this
because-
was this worked out. This episode worked out for Echo the best, and as a result, you could do a lot more with it. So,
Yeah.
if they're gonna explore anything in Arcane, or I don't know, animated versions of using this story, start with episode 7. Go from there. Have
They're
fun.
not going to expand into these stories.
No?
It's unfortunate. We're not going to get any more.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
spin-offs happen in the future.
yeah.
That's why they had to rush to get to this point.
It was an interesting, very interesting episode, and it made sense. Everything was answered to the degree that we needed from the previous episodes, at least, because this is what I hate about stories, that you do a mystery thing, and then you need it explained immediately. And if you don't, then you're left confused as to why it's happening. So this is great because it explains a lot of the problems we had, but not all of them, because there's so many other issues, and they bring up even more issues. And you can't just keep doing flashbacks or time loops or whatever. You have to like get on with the story and finish the plot. And this is one of those things that just works so well. Okay, I think we're good.
We do have to talk about Heimerdinger, though.
Yeah,
I
he
am
just
very-
checks out. He's like, yeah, let me help you. And it's like, what? Why would you sacrifice yourself, dude?
He needed to do a 1.21 gigawatts stunt.
Well, the problem with
Back when-
Heimerdinger doing this is, as and James and we were talking about this in my server earlier, because we see what after the spin around, old, I guess, alternate universe Echo gets spat on the ground. That means that alternate universe Heimerdinger should have been spat on the ground too, which means that Heimerdinger not only killed himself, but he killed alternate, Heimerdinger too.
Oh,
And I
we
don't
don't
think
know if he's
Heimerdinger would have
dead
made
or
that
not.
choice.
We don't know where alternate Heimerdinger is.
We don't.
But he was holding the cables at the time, so he did a Doc Brown.
We could jump back in.
Yeah, basically. But I also feel like they didn't separate because they weren't in the center of the thing, like Echo was, and that's why Echo was able to separate, where Heimerdinger probably wasn't. He's probably off somewhere because we didn't see a body. I could argue
we-
he just vaporized,
And no splatter.
but that'd be kind of, yeah, no splat. Like I did kind of find that scene funny where they're testing out time travel. It's like 1, 2, 3, and then
Ooh.
Heimerdinger like holy, and then he just blows the fuck up. I found that kind of funny, but that's another thing I liked about the episode. They gave a clear limit to what Echo could do
Yeah.
without consequences.
And where that was used again, also in part to illustrate the powers of Echo's device, but also in a tragic comedic way, when Echo then talked to the real Jinx, tried
Yeah.
to talk her out of suicide, and that is pretty
That-
much what talking to somebody who is that close to the end is like. Every word is wrong.
Yeah.
I agree.
And that scene works well because we know why it works. You see, he has a power. We understand how the power works. We get it, and you can play around with drama and comedy as much as you want because the fundamentals are there. So, yeah, you use the best episode and you use all the lore and knowledge from there, and you apply it to later stories or later chapters. It works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we can keep going. Killing is a cycle.
Now let's go on to episode 8. God, I hate this fucking episode.
Okay. 8 and 9 are tough, yeah. Following Isha's sacrifice, Jinx surrenders to the Enforcers. Oh. Caitlin reunites with Jason Mel, who survived her ordeals thanks to her newfound magical powers, and returned to Piltover while learning of Ambessa's overreaching ambitions. After failing to negotiate with Jason Mel, a resurgent Victor, now one with the Arcane, if that's ever expressed,
Is that what it is?
I don't know, communicates to Ambessa, offering to enhance her soldiers in exchange for access to the Wild Rune beneath the Hex Gates, while Singed, again, they never call him Singed, starts working to regenerate Vander, now stripped of all his prior memories.
Whom they don't call Warwick.
Yeah. In her cell, Jinx experiences visions of Silco, who tells her violence is a cycle that can only be broken when one walks away. I actually forgot Silco died. I was like, oh, is he back? It's like, oh. He's having
He could be.
Yeah, I was like, maybe he is. I don't know. No, it's just a vision. because he was talking about freeing her, right? And I was like, wait a second, does he have keys? What's going on? She was released by Vi, only for Jinx to lock Vi up in turn, concluding there was no good version of herself. I like that because that plays in episode 7. Caitlin later releases Vi from the cell, and they have sex. Jace teams up with Caitlin to evacuate Zahn and organize Piltover's defense against Mbessa's assault. Mel attempts to negotiate with Mbessa, but it ends in vain as Victor empowers his servants for war. So this is they're running out of time. We got to wrap this up. Let's go, sort of.
You also forgot something important from episode 5.
Okay.
So you have to scroll back. I can tell chat right now. So chat, after her and after Kate and Vi have their lesbian breakup, Kate immediately goes back and picks Maddie and says, "I'm in love with you now, Maddie." This random girl who showed up. So it's very important that her and Maddie are definitely banging all the time right now.
That was the start of episode 4, I think.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we mentioned it. I just want to say we need to make sure it's hit upon now, because episode 8 and especially 9 require you to understand that they are definitely, having a clam party.
Yeah, and episode 8, Vi doesn't care. She's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, what? You don't? What is going on here? Do you just not give a shit about relationships?
She looks Kate right in the eyes and says, "I'm in lesbians with you no matter what. Hit me again, babe."
Yeah.
This just implies that they are all narcissists or psychopaths in some form.
The way this got set up is so silly. Like, Caitlin knew Vi was going to go free her sister. She does that, then she gets trapped. And Caitlin just lets her rot in that cell for the entire episode. And then she goes in, "Don't you think you're a little bit more predictable?" And you're like, wait a second, you let your girlfriend in here suffer because you knew she was going to free her sister, and you're like, okay with it? And it's like, okay, great, fine. This whole scene was unnecessary. The music was unnecessary. It lasted like 30 seconds or whatever.
It was 1 minute and 12 seconds of enhanced kissing.
Really? Jeez, I must have blacked that out.
Because there's a little bit of kissing, then they talk a bit, then they move in further. All that, the tatting around, and then the actual TNA that was happening. Yeah, it takes up. Me and my dad, we actually started skipping because, come on, man, I want to get to the episode now.
I was uncomfortable watching it
thing.
alone. I was like, oh my god, this is not.
Yeah.
This is unnecessary.
This is one of those things where
much fun about it. We're like, all right, now make sure you slowly take her top off, because we need to see every detail of the tattoo. But we're going to show no nipples, no anything actual sexual. We're just going to show arms and more arms. Man, aren't we the best animators ever?
This is a great example of how these types of creators they are, one, obsessed with this type of stuff. Second, what they make is what I'd call safe edgy. They want to make all the gory stuff, all the blood splatters and everything, and they want to do all they're obsessed with the sexual elements, at least the non-hetero things. But then they do it in this, actually, we're embarrassed about showing it. But we also want the R rating, but we also are not going to show it.
I just watched a review of Angry Joe doing the Veilguard, and he was saying, where's the sex?
That's a perfect example of this safe, edgy, sexual obsession, but incompetent, immature writing, and just there's just nothing.
I read I read they were doing all these interviews, the BioWare team, before the game was released, and they were saying, the greatest, we put a lot of effort into the Tosh romance. She's very passionate, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to go crazy with sex with her. And that's the one that Angry Joe was talking about. All you see is her ass. That's it. Everything else there's nothing. There's no nipples. There's no jumping up and down. There's no moaning, nothing. And you're like, wait, this is what
that wasn't written by people who ever had sex in their lives before. That was written by girls who had been at slumber parties.
Oh yeah, okay.
And think cuddling and laying on top of each other is sex.
Well, this was very.
And I've seen better cuddling.
It's weird because naturally I wouldn't be uncomfortable with this sort of scenario, but it's like, why? It just, the tone doesn't work. The scenario is hilarious. You're in a cell, for God's sake. You're in the
same cell your sister was having a mental breakdown.
She was
depressed.
She was just like losing her shit, and then her sister traps her in here, so she's angry, and you're like, ha ha, I knew you were gonna do this. I forgive you.
It's funny if you describe the situation. So think about you have to put yourself in that section. She was locked in there for a few days because you see at least 2 plates of food, which means there's at least 2 meals she should have had. That means that Jinx would have shit in there. So that means, we don't see any toilets. So that means there's a corner that her sister shit in, and she's like, oh yeah, now I need to make out with my girlfriend.
You're just adding more of the suppressed fetishes of these writers.
Let's do
Well,
it in the shit corner.
yes, well, it's just so funny.
For me, it's just the fact I don't. And this
Everything's been a hallucination.
I can't really buy Caitlyn forgiving Jinx and letting her get away like that. I'm just saying they're like, I understand perhaps Jinx is depressed and that could be enough, but that isn't like there's so many other people she's hurt. Wouldn't Caitlyn want justice for them?
Yeah,
she's getting
with all
justice,
this stuff,
pants justice.
and there's no evidence that Jinx is going to do anything good or help the city.
Yeah,
Nothing.
all we know, she says she's going to end the cycle, and I'm just saying they're like, that could mean a lot of things with Jinx. I understand like that in her context, that's probably killing herself. And I'm just saying they're like, what if she decides to end the cycle by destroying Piltover once and for all? Like,
Okay, just end the cycle by letting the bad guys win.
yeah.
That's because it's often the bad guys who want the good guys to stop killing because killing is bad. So just let me rule over you. You see that in the real world way too often, and in abusive relationships.
Well, this is if they're going to do something like this, they should have done exactly what they've done with all the other musical interludes, where it's all fast paced, or like with the dancing, it was cut and stylized. That would have been fine, and it wouldn't have been a minute and a half. It would have been like 20 seconds, maybe 15 seconds. Make it romantic.
No, if you want to make it go as long as they did, I understand. But you need to put a song that actually matches. None of this sappy, weird stuff. You need to go decide, because you already get licensed stuff. They got Imagine Dragons. Why not go get a fun song, like Discovery Channel? That's what they should have played.
Yeah.
Do it like they do on the Discovery Channel.
Oh, no.
All right. Well,
what annoyed the thing is, this whole thing, so there's been so much media in the past decade that's been ruined by not just the 20s, but over the last decade. That's been ruined by shippers. And the whole Vi and Caitlyn thing started out of a meme of fan art about League of Legends. But then the creepy activist types who then got into every company, they had to take that up and, we need to do this for real. And when they then do it, it's absolutely grotesque and repulsive. They couldn't even make it pretty. But they shouldn't have done it in the first place.
I'm okay with them hooking up. It's just, again, how it's done.
Yeah.
Make it make sense. Make it tasteful.
It's not humans. These are not human characters, the way they go about a relationship.
Yeah, it's already divorced.
And the physical interaction with it.
Well, it's already divorced from the game, so you could do whatever you want, and I get that. But if you're going to do it as close as you can, use as much lore as you can, and build upon it properly, and then add the human element. Don't do this weird, I'm smarter than you, I let you free your sister thing, and I let you rot in here for a bit, and it's like, wait, you did what to me?
To mention...
Yeah.
Another thing that kind of bothered me about the scene is that Caitlyn, for as far as we knew, she didn't break off her thing with Maddie.
Yeah.
And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Still
that she's just
Maddie
so willing to
this moment.
She brought it up.
Episode 9, the thing that happens, that's because she's still banging Maddie.
Yeah, she's like,
that scene was 5 minutes before.
I'm with this other person, blah, blah, blah. I don't fucking care. You're like, okay.
I really like how I think Maddie might have a thing or two to say. I'm not an expert on, I'm not an expert on lesbians who have orange hair, but I have a feeling Maddie has an opinion or two on this.
Yeah, and Maddie liked Vi at the start of the...
They can't all be psychopaths who don't care about jealousy.
Well,
they usually are very, very, very jealous.
Well, maybe not, because Maddie had a thing for Vi at the start of the show because she was a hero. So... Anyway.
If only Maddie was brought. You know what? That's the problem. Maddie wasn't allowed to join. She just had to sit in the cuck chair and watch. If she allowed to join, then she wouldn't have betrayed them in episode 9.
Okay. All right.
Oh my god, I have some things to say about that, along with all the side characters this season, except for Smeech and
About episode 9 or about the cup chair thing?
All right. Let's get to episode
There's
9.
there's a thing in the
A couple
chat I
things.
want to address where NN mentions that the showrunners being active on social media started this whole stuff, or social media in general. Yes and no. You have to think of the timeline. When we noticed here that the stuff is getting big was around 2009. That's where it was starting to get really big in politics, with activist groups and new parties forming that were then ruined by the stuff. And you then have to think we're now in 2024. That is 15 years later. So the people who were then, which was the Tumblr time back in the day, when Tumblr was really big, and that's where all these creepy, crazy shippers were. Imagine they were then 16 to 20. That means now these are 30 to 35, if I'm not too tired. And that means these people who were 16 to 20 then, which is all these crazy borderline women with narcissistic personality disorder, got into these jobs, into these professions, into these companies. That's how they influence the writing, because they're obsessed with it. They bring that with they brought Tumblr there because they grew up on Tumblr. And that's what we're dealing with now.
All right. Let's get to episode 9. This is where it
Well,
all...
before we do it, we need to finish talking about episode 8 with Mbessa. We didn't even touch on Mbessa.
Oh, God.
I think it's really weird how Mbessa just sees these robot people and immediately is like, yeah, that's fine. I think my soldiers should totally do that. That's a great idea.
This
and all
giant-
the soldiers are like, yeah, that's a great idea, Mom.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you suggested that I, just take drugs and, and become a robot.
Yeah. It's...
And how does she expect that to end well for her, given Victor's personality that she knows of?
Please
from
please upgrade my troops to make them stronger. It's like that's gonna be a great idea.
soldiers. It's like, wait, what?
How does that?
Well,
Yeah, how
what
does
do you
that
mean
work
upgrade
again?
us?
Victor, what do you do? How does that?
At least from
Wasn't this
Victor's
his
perspective,
job?
he just wants to get to the ruin at the bottom. So his idea, maybe I would assume for him, this is a little bit more suffering, so I can get to the goal to end all suffering. I see why Victor agrees to this, but what? And Bessa, why would you agree? These are some stupid hippies that you're going to make your guys like robots now. Really? You think it's not going to end up poorly for you? He made all these guys, people who you would know because the other characters would say, "Oh, this guy was a cracked up druggie who stabbed his 2 friends, but now he's here growing plants and making poetry for the slam night." Like, you don't think your soldiers who are all war and killing are going to have this pacifism infect them? That never crossed her mind once. She never even mentioned, "Don't bring your pacifism in, just upgrades." Like,
Let's have my super elite army be mind controlled by this weird guy.
Yeah,
Great
I don't
idea.
know.
Framey. Now I understand perhaps Mbessa was desperate because her army couldn't do shit against. Well, actually, wait a second. They actually could do some damage against Piltover. They were doing very well for themselves in the beginning of episode 9, but why did she team up
Regardless of
with
that,
Victor?
I don't think the upgrades, even if she said, "I'll make an alliance with you, Victor, have your people come help my people, and I'll give you the wild ruin underneath it," that would make more sense. But the fact that she asks for upgrades is weird. And it's also like, where did they get all of the shimmer? Because all the shimmer people were killed. Like, how did she suddenly get all the access to all the shimmer? Because that's what a lot of the soldiers are on. That's why they're all big and hulked out. They're on shimmer again. But then it's really weird when episode 9 rolls around. None of the guys who are from the underground or from Zon are on shimmer. But I know a bunch of you people were taking this stuff. And I know you guys had, not a single random thug from under the Undercity decided to help out here. It's just all the good guys suddenly are drug free. Don't do drugs, kids. The winners don't win with drugs. Like, come on. It was weird.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to kind of bring up about that is when a Jace shows everyone in that room Victor's robot, a lot of them just walk out because they don't want to deal with it. I'm just saying they're like, okay, I get some of the nobles wanting to flee, but why did I just forget her name? She's the one with the arm. Savika. Why does Savika walk away again? Perhaps she just hates topside, but wouldn't she be a little bit concerned? It's not like everyone in the underside, in the Undercity can afford to leave.
Well,
So, like,
yeah,
what exactly is the plan here?
it's one thing for Victor to mind control a living person. Now he's mind controlling robots, and it's like, okay, is this a magical thing? Is it a mechanical thing? Is it mechanical magic? Like, is it bioorganic? Like, I don't. The extent of whatever he can do is just like he can do anything. He's just the guy. He has a remote control to the universe. He just presses buttons. I'm gonna make this Warwick guy be healthy again. I'm gonna make this druggie be a robot for me. I'm gonna make like he could fly up in the air. It becomes like
He's just an El Toro.
it's like whenever you have those anime characters that everyone can fly. They're magical users. They can teleport. They can do they can just do stuff now. It's like really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did. They had so many ways to explain this, to get into what this place is that he's part of, what his life is, what his existence is, who his weird surrogate girlfriend is that's guiding him along. And there's that thing in episode 9 where it's like, I'm gonna miss you. It's like, no, you're not. It's like, wait a second, is this person real? Is this an ego?
Yeah.
No. She understands that through the process of him fully ascending, going to apotheosis,
Oh yeah,
he won't give a shit anymore.
maybe. I mean, either that or it's his imagination. His imagination knows. Yeah, I'm not
But
real.
then also the question is, how then after eons does he come back?
Yeah.
And that is something that should have been shown, not just told.
Anyway, let's talk about episode 9. The dirt under your nails. Here we go. This is probably the worst episode. As the Noxians attack, the Piltovans hold the line for Jace to dismantle the Hex Vault, but are overwhelmed with Maddie revealed to be a double agent for no reason, sabotaging their plans until the Zonites and Jinx, who were dissuaded from suicide by Echo, which was a great scene, come to their aid. However, the attack is revealed to be a distraction while Victor infiltrates the vault, and the resistance is neutralized by his servants, including Vander, who attacks Vi and Jinx. After Mel kills Maddie, Caitlin separates Ambessa from the runes she used as protection against the Black Rose. See, that was not well explained.
Yeah.
Allowing the sorcerers to fatally injure her. The sorceress meaning allowing Mel.
Sorcerers,
Yeah.
plural.
After which she dies in Mel's arms. Which that's a whole series of fighting, which this is not very well summarizing. Taking control of the.
To be honest, I thought Ambessa's death was lame.
Oh yeah, it was.
Like, personally.
When
we get there, I have so many problems. I got an hour of problems with that.
Yeah, there's so much going on. Taking control of the Wild Rune, Victor subdues everyone except Echo, who disrupts the brainwashing using his time reversal device. Jace then. Yeah, Jace. That was cool. Jace then convinces Victor to abandon his plan by disclosing his encounter with the hooded figure, revealed to be Victor's repentant future self. So that was the same timeline as this one, just the future. Okay, that's weird. Working together, they destroy the Wild Rune, disappearing in the process. However, Vander remains feral, prompting Jinx to stop him by seemingly that was, again, what the hell's going on there? By sacrificing herself. Afterwards, Savika becomes Zaun's representative on the council. Mel departs for Noxus. Singe, why would she go to Noxus? Singe successfully cures his daughter. He does?
No, he doesn't.
Well,
no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Victor uplifts her.
And
So that's not even his daughter.
And Vi and Caitlin ponder their. The whole ending was just.
Wait, then how come the daughter's still alive then? If Victor disappeared and all these robots?
Because it was in probably one of his last acts, or he did it at some point where we didn't see off camera.
No, James, it's okay. You're asking too many questions. The episode's over. It happened. That's the plot point we need for episode for series 2.
Oh, also,
Singed and
not
Minged.
joining the council.
It was
I do not buy that.
Singed did had to make some truce with Victor, so that was probably part of the bargain.
Yeah, but no, I'm saying, no, James, don't worry about it. How did that happen and why is she not dead? Doesn't matter. We'll find out in season 2 of Binging with Sinjin.
It was like watching
Did you
a
watch
rushed
Dungeon?
version of Mr. Freeze. Like it was just, or Dr. Freeze. It was like, okay,
Yes.
he's got this
Yeah.
same thing going for him. He's doing whatever he can to save his daughter, and then she's saved. And you're like, what? When did this happen? Like, what?
The end
Which
of this
is which
episode-
I think is
Gets
more
everything
understandable than the actual Mr. Freeze plot.
Oof, hot takes, chat, kill him. So I think want to say the end of this episode really feels like those old anime music videos where they just take random clips from fight scenes together and put it that don't even match the lyrics. It's just where it's like things are happening and like, okay, if I know what's going on here, this is probably cool.
Oh,
But
God.
me as a person who's never watched One Piece, I don't know what's happening here. That's how the ending feels. It's like, but I watched the thing it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
Things are just happening. It's like, oh, that happened. Oh, that's going on.
There's a
That's cool.
scene where Vi is carrying a guy. And you're like, who's this guy? And she's like, she's in the scenes like for like 5 minutes. You're like, okay, she's running away, and here's this guy. Oh, stay with me. It's like, who is this guy?
And it turns out to be the black chick who had the dreadlocks that were Jinx's hair color from like episode 4, who was beat up by one of the guards.
Oh,
Oh.
who we saw in episode 7 as an alternate bartender chick or whatever she was.
Yeah.
yeah. And we're like,
that
oh,
chick,
I know
it
that.
really got important. The one that what's his face hit on, not Klangora, Milo hit on
Yeah, it's like
before he was turned into Tiger's bottom.
It just, there's these things you're like, wait a second, what does this mean anything to us? It's like, nope, doesn't mean anything. It's just she's a person that we knew visually. See, this is the thing about this series. It's, I think, the same way with John Wick episode 4. They went too far. The writers or the stunt choreographers became the writers, and then they just went too far with it. I think that's what's happening with season 2.
But with John Wick, that's all we wanted. Because the story of John Wick is the relevant part is extremely simple, and then the whole magic syndicate background thing makes absolutely no sense in the real world, because you could never have that many assassins all try to make money in this system, because there's not enough people in the world to kill for that without ever being noticed.
You could argue the first 3 episodes of John Wick got decreasingly bad as they went on, but they were still, watchable and made sense. The 4th one was like, what the hell? With episode 9, the rushing, the Maddie just there's no reason she's a turncoat. There's absolutely none. There's no explanation. She dies almost 5 minutes later.
Could have Bessa offered her lordship of like
regardless of that, I want to explain before we get into the weeds, James. Hold your thought. Just so you know, this 40-minute or 50-minute episode, including credits, by the way, goes from, hey guys, we're probably going to be attacked soon, to the attack is over, we've buried all the bodies, and everybody's moving on to the different parts of the world months later. In one episode. That's ridiculously fast, so it's supposed to be the big final fight. Now go ahead with your point, James, about it being really weird with Maddie.
Yeah, like what could have Bessa have offered Maddie? A lordship? Like ruling a Piltover? What was Maddie after?
Yeah.
And like what?
No, I can actually answer this question. Maddie was also banging Mbessa. See, it's lesbians all the way down.
Well, the only thing we know about Maddie is she likes Vi and she likes Caitlin. That's pretty much all we know about her character. She was part of the fight in the first episode, so she had a smoke gun or what?
Yeah, she had a grenade launcher.
Vanderdyes.
Smoke grenades.
Yeah, smoke grenades.
Viscount Vanderdyes as well. Really loved his character. He was deep.
And
as
Jinx
well.
just gives up. Jinx just lets go. It's like you don't have like.
Well, no, he's talking about James is talking about the guy on the gun, the not Vander, who was with Vi.
Oh yeah, okay.
So Maddie's just frustrated she couldn't get all the clams.
No, so I think jokes aside, I actually think what was really promised was Maddie was like, "Hey man, I can't believe my girlfriend cheated on me with Vi, the girl I'm really in love with. I love Vi so much that I dated her ex." And the best is like, I got you, bro. I'm gonna make sure that you get Vi as a concubine. We just have to kill Kate. And she's like, bet. It makes sense to me.
Oh my god.
That might actually work as women lesbian Game of Thrones logic. That there's crazy stuff. They do have crazy schemes. I've witnessed that in real life. It's you couldn't come up with it. I could never be a fantasy writer because I can't write reality.
Well, Echo scenes were good. The 2 scenes, him with Jinx and him with trying to stop Victor. Those were all great. They all made sense.
Yeah.
So
I like how the whole show died for Echo to have couple good scenes.
Yeah.
But I have a more mundane explanation for the Maddie thing, and that is that something I always see with these types of writers, the shipper writers, the narcissistic activist writers, and that is that they always write soap opera level. They can't do better. And we see this. We saw this with the Shogun remake. It's complete soap opera, obsessed with female girl bosses and relationships, and many of these other things we've seen in the past decade.
The one thing
It's always soap opera level logic.
the one thing I didn't like as a result of all the superpowers that Victor has is Jace is desperately, I don't know why he's doing it by himself. He's trying to pull out all the nuclear pylons or whatever they're called from the hex
But he doesn't
vault.
even pull them out. He just kind of puts them halfway out.
And then Victor just comes by, snaps his fingers, they all go back. And
I
you're like,
expected that to happen because you have this hard work done manually, and then comes the boop, all futile.
yeah, and
You're nothing. You're a worm.
And he looks like, again, he looked like one of those star gods from the skins in League of Legends. And
Yeah,
he's,
He finally had his third arm.
yeah, he got his arm. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. For me,
But yeah,
I
that
also
one I
questioned
liked.
with the reveal of the whole Victor being the wizard all along thing. Why didn't Jace just show Victor to begin with? That kind of confused me. Like, why didn't he like, hey bro,
How was
touch me,
Jace
but
supposed to
not
show
that
him?
way?
Well, this is the thing with Victor. He could read your mind. He could rape
Victor
you
can peer into
mentally,
minds.
and it's like, oh, I could read your mind. And in that future, I did all this bad stuff. It's like,
Yeah, like how he healed Vander's mind to begin with. Like,
Okay, but Jace doesn't know
The-
that. Jace's been told by other. But here's the thing: other Victor knows what needs to happen for Victor to get to the Victor point. So Victor knows he can't tell Jace. He's got to show Jace, and what happens. So then that's why Jace keeps having these mental problems because the images were planted in his mind. Because endgame Victor is still too cynical and doesn't think that Jace is worthwhile anymore, so he makes him a vessel. So he has to go back up to the exact moment where he succeeds, because he knows that's the only time that he succeeds, because he's already at the end game. He's already at the point where he's won.
Yeah, words alone cannot convince somebody with a goal, and that's why Jace is just a vessel for the full information of the only authority that Victor would trust, which is himself.
Yeah, it makes it much more evil and much more upsetting when you could reconsider that's how their friendship ended, with simply being a vessel to prevent him from himself from killing the world. It's tragic, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
We get none of that because Westeros passed everything.
And an amazing idea for a plot, really, but it gets overshadowed by so many other things not really working out because they don't have time to breathe. I say this about so many shows and movies made right now, that they never take the time to breathe. And that's the big difference between film, whether animation or live action in the West, and what the East in Japan, especially, and Korea is doing. They still give everything the time to breathe.
Japanese animation takes so long to breathe. You get 2,000 episodes of One Piece.
That's not what I mean, and you know it. You know about visual punctuation?
Yes.
It's like, good. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah. I got you. I know what you actually mean, but it's a podcast. People are here to be entertained. You got to make a couple jokes, have some fun.
Yeah, I know, but I'm okay. I'm massively autistic. I sometimes don't know when people are joking and when they're just not. Sorry, I'm trying.
Man.
I am trying.
Well,
All right, here's how you can tell. If it's a point you agree with, I'm serious. If it's a point you disagree with, I'm joking. See?
Oh, if it only was that easy.
there was a weird thing with the scene with Mbessa and the Black Rose chick and Mel, where Mel double crosses the Black Rose chick. I'm like, okay, what is going? Why did you?
Double cross is so weird because she's like, I know you, and then doesn't tell us who she is, or doesn't show us who she is, so we don't get to know who she is. It's like, why
Oh,
does you know her? Like,
It's
as
a
an audience
mystery
member.
box for the next season so that you watch more rushed nonsense.
It's like Mel wants the chick to stop her mother. She does, and then she wants to stop the chick who stopped her mother for some reason. You're like, what is going on exactly? And
Yeah.
she doesn't like the Black Rose anymore, even though she has the necklace.
I understand being mistrusting of them, but in my opinion, I'm not sure you'd want to piss off the people who easily kidnapped you in episode 3 and who were apparently powerful enough to strip your mother of all their holdings and do all this shit. I'm not sure if you really want to piss them off. Wait for a moment and
Yeah,
then strike.
that arm link stuff. I thought they were like dog tags from the dead people of her people that died.
Yeah, I did not identify that as magic rune
And,
magic stuff.
And the magic runes
Actually,
are a
they were
physical
on
shield
Rectus'
as well
staff.
as a magical shield against the Black Rose. So I was like, why wouldn't the Black Rose attack previously? Because she wasn't wearing those things.
Because what's his face? Victor? No, not Victor.
Rictus.
Richter was there. Richter had the runes the whole time.
Oh, he
That's
was
why when
protecting her. Oh, really?
Yep, it's shown throughout the entire thing. In fact, before we realized how stupid it was, there was a thought that the reason that when we had the scene in episode 1 where the guys in the big scuba suits were killing everybody, that his blade pierced them was because of his runes. His runes are anti-magic fields essentially, which really could have been interesting because now you have the chick who's anti-magic teamed up with the king of magic. And we didn't get any of that.
I was confused because she was lighting them on fire, and I was like, "Is this like some like ritual? Like what is going on?" But that turns them on, and I was like, "Okay, wait a second."
Recharge the battery.
Fire charges it with power because they don't have any mana. Basically, think about it like if you have mana, none of them have mana to put into this thing because none of them are wizards. So they take the power that fire creates, the most primal form of creation, and the idea that you have transference of essences, and they burn it into it to charge it up. It's they don't say any of this, of course, but as a person who's experienced enough other world building, especially magic systems, I know what they're going with here. I can see it.
I think it's basic enough.
Yeah, I wish they told us, but I've seen enough magic systems to know that's what's going on here.
With all the psychedelics that were happening in the entire season, I was like, I don't know what this armband thing stuff is going on.
A stupid question: Is Richter a new character in the game, or was that just this version of Draven?
Side character. He was in as second in command.
He gave me in his fight at the end. He gave me a lot of Draven vibes.
No,
he might be a skin from eventually, but Richter's not in the game at all.
No, he's
I actually think if I recall, somebody told me that there's a Noxian mob, and he looks kind of like one of the bigger mobs, from them.
Yeah, I will say. One of the major things about the finale is they had so many emotional beats, but I couldn't feel what I should have because of how rushed it felt. Yes. I found that very disappointing because, the Victor and Jace scene, I felt could have been very, very powerful if they had more time. These two friends who made this together, they're about to fix it and die together as best friends because that's what they somewhat were. But it just kind of came out of nowhere. Given, Victor seemingly giving up all of his humanity to try and help humanity. I don't know.
God. The whole scene with Victor just touching people's skulls, and they're all connected into the Matrix, and then they're talking to Jace, and he's trying to help him, and he touches his skull, and then he sees the vision of the future, and he's crying, and they're hugging in the subspace. I don't half that. I was like, what is happening? Who's saying
universe?
I'm like, what is going on in this scene? And you have
everything to and nothing all at once.
It's just this big psychedelic explosion, like it happened in episode 6, and you're just like, okay, only this time they're hugging. You're like, okay.
But James, you mentioned something important there, and I've noticed this in practice, which I mentioned before with the West versus the East. And that is that we have mature writers and immature writers. Mature writers let things breathe because that's how you naturally do it. That's how it works well. That's why The Hobbit works so well, the book. Well, the immature writers, they're kids and teenagers chasing dopamine high, so they need to get from scene to scene to scene to scene to scene, ever higher, ever higher. It's a sugar high. But that doesn't work for people who have developed past that age.
No,
mentally.
I'm gonna read this has nothing to do with the actual show, but I'm gonna read the production text here. It says Riot Games CEO Nicolas Laurent said it took 6 years to make the first season of Arcane. And
you can see that in the writing was polished.
And
Yeah.
back in the day, that makes sense because back in 2000s, we just had X SGI workstations. It took a long time to compile and render stuff in very high detail. These shows all look incredible. There's nothing visually unappealing aside from maybe some Uncanny Valley facial talking rigs with expressions and emotions. There's a few little, like, that doesn't look too human, but they're stylized, so you can sort of get around that. The visuals of the levels, not the levels, the houses, the cities, they're all amazing. Everything is thought out very well, looks very well, lit very well. Aside from the weird collaborative musical interludes, which are very, very creative, you could argue those are good or bad. Some of them are great, some of them are bad. Everything looks amazing. That's why I always say, go out, watch season 1, watch season 2, see what you think. At least once. The same with The Last Jedi. At least once. Watch it and tell me what you think, or just experience and then never watch it again. With season 1, I can go back and watch it because it works. The characters are there. It's a family story.
It's amazing.
It's beautiful. It's very touching and dramatic. Season 2, it's like, this is so out there. And this is coming from like watching Ghost in the Shell Innocence, where it's so psychedelic. I don't even know what's going on anymore, but I understand when the puppet master takes over a body. It makes sense. This is like Victor has superpowers and he's in subspace doing things with his dead girlfriend and they're talking about humanity and you're just like, what is this? What is going on here? Is this a philosophical moment?
The girlfriend, we get to talk about it, but when I do, I get a rap sheet.
Okay.
The thing is, if development started in 2015, that makes sense because Christian Linke is as one of the writers of the last episode, which and 2015 I think was around the time when these evolution skins came out. So I guess that was the overall plot that was already there, but 2 seasons are not enough to get through it.
Yeah, like that. They needed a lot more.
Well,
and especially when the first 2 seasons, you should have focused on the entirely, not just the first, but the second as well.
If you read the rest
on the tank girl plot of Jinx.
If you read the rest of that, it says instead of finding a new animation studio that specialized in television animation, Riot decided to continue their partnership with Fortiche, who had produced music videos for them. So all the music videos you watched, which were really good, by the way, over the years.
Some. In the second one, I would say only half of them were decent.
You mean throughout the years of the Riot YouTube
No, I mean
channel?
in Arcane.
Oh, no, this is what I'm talking about. Fortiche did these music videos for them.
All of it.
On YouTube, like all the seasons, and they release a new character, or they do a new... what they do is they get the leaders or the winners of that season, and they make a music video with them. And it's really cool. They do a lot of really weird J-pop stuff or K-pop. Or the last one was really great with Tryndamere and Ash. That was like really beautifully done. So they took those guys to do the animation. I don't know if they helped out with the writing, but to me it has that John Wick vibe of the stunt guys are the writers.
I mean, let's just look at the number of writers. Every episode has different writers, different combinations of writers. That's too many cooks.
That's weird.
That has to fall apart.
That is like every episode has a different writer, essentially.
And that also explains why Heimerdinger is not Heimerdinger from season 1.
Yeah. Alex Yee. This is interesting. Episode 6, which was really bad, it has Alex Yee. Episode 7 has Amanda Overton. Episode 8 has Alex Yee and Amanda Overton. And this is where it gets worse and worse, because Amanda Overton did episode 7, which was the best. And then it's Alex Yee again with Christian Linke in episode 9.
That's
yeah. And so Linke was the guy who started the project.
Yeah.
But the way I would go about it, if you have that many writers, is at least rather than to focus them on episodes, I would give the overall showrunner for this, and if you have these extra writers, have each writer focus on specific characters so that the characters stay consistent and have them interact.
Yeah.
Wow, this thing cost for both seasons $250 million. That is amazing. I thought it'd be a lot higher.
Wait,
What?
each?
Both seasons, $250
So
million.
500.
Well, the second can't have cost that much. If you develop it for 6 years, then the first season will have cost the major bulk of that.
Well, we're talking about a Disney level production. Like, it's just so big, and we're in 9 episodes each. So,
Well, they already made all that back with the Ari skins.
oh yeah, you know how expensive those are. Holy shit! Fully animated still scenes while you're waiting in the lobby. Like, really? We need that? I saw one today actually. I was like, what the hell? The guy's like,
You know,
yeah.
I have, and I think it must have been 2013, 14 or something that I fell completely off of League of Legends, and there's so much stuff about it out now that most of the music videos I've never seen because I didn't want to get dragged back into it. I had no clue it's gotten this big. I thought it just kept cooking in the background like all the other things.
Yeah, League of Legends is still the biggest game in the world as far as I know. But in terms of concurrent players and not in terms of time frame, like I'm sure there's been games that are longer than this that have been on the market, or like persistent universes have been a lot longer. But yeah, it's the most popular. It gets the most money aside from, was it StarCraft? I'm trying to remember those other competitive sport games.
Well, StarCraft 2 didn't work as well as Blizzard had hoped.
Well, it's still pretty popular for competitive play. I just don't know the numbers these days. It's been a while since I've cared about comparing who's who and who's doing what team. But yeah, a lot of StarCraft players went to League and vice versa. So changes every year. But that's a whole argument. We're not going to get into that. Thanks, guys. That was 2 hours and 40 minutes of us rambling on about Season 2. Should you watch it? I say yes for the sake of it. And if you like the first season, you should watch the second, at least. But you will not, probably if you have a tuned sensitivity to storytelling, it might not work out very well for you. But you will appreciate the sounds for the most part, and definitely the visuals. So I can't fault the voice acting. The voice actors did a great job.
Except one who kept slipping from the voice training.
Which one was that?
That weird furry one spoken for by the
Oh yeah, that random person with the brush. That was
and I was like, half the time that sounded like a man. I was like, what is going on with that voice actor? And I looked it up. Oh, it's a trans woman. Okay.
Yeah.
You need to go back to voice training. Like half the time it worked, half the time it didn't. It was slipping back and forth, like somebody in a going through a puberty, going through voice change, voice cracking.
Yep, I agree with NNN. Isha was the best voice actor.
Yeah.
Visual storytelling, guys. That's what Riot's good for. Okay, we got it.
Yeah.
Right, well, thank you all for joining us tonight.
Yeah, we have your channel in the description if you guys want to check out Mr. King.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for having me on tonight, my friend. I look forward to doing more of these one day.
I was looking for some people who...
Well.
Yeah, thank you as well for popping in. I was looking for people who wanted to talk about... And I know Mark did, but he had to leave because he always leaves. And I wanted to talk about it because I enjoyed the series for as many faults as it had. I didn't like how it ended, as usual. But just as an experience, I think everyone should... It's like going to some random country. Just go there. Do it once. Get it out of your system. Say, all right, wasn't as much as I wanted, but I'm glad I went, and I'm glad I watched season 2.
And you think the high points are worth it. Unlike something like Game of Thrones season 8, where it might not even be worth going back to watch the original stuff. It ends so badly. This is definitely worth still watching.
Yeah, it's still okay. It didn't fall off the cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, again, I was a little bit disappointed with the season, but when I see people comparing it to Game of Thrones season 8, I can't really say I fully agree with it. There are things I dislike, but there are a lot of things I also like animation, the visuals, some of the moments I find pretty solid, where season 8 of Thrones was horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah.
all the Echo stuff I thought was done very well. So
Yeah, and again, I
Yeah.
still think it's worth going after. There's a lot of highlights here. Season 1 has a lot more highlights, of course, but Season 2 even has some really great moments. We didn't talk about much of like the fight for Episode 9, but some of the fight scenes have some really cool and interesting ways that they do things. And the fact that this is one of the only things I could think of with like robot zombies in a fantasy is worth just looking at because that's a unique concept. And as a storyteller, one of the most interesting things you can do as a storyteller is find a concept somebody did poorly and do it better. You could write it better than this. I know you can.
I wish that they used more lore from the game that fans would be like, oh, it's, you know, because when Victor said Glorious Revolution, I was like, that had a very Soviet vibe in the game.
Mhm.
And this was a completely different tone and context.
Well, it is also communism, but differently.
It's its own flavor. Yeah, but that's what's cool about it, but also sort of like, well, why did they just go the robotic route properly? Because all the robots are like these white things, and I don't know what Victor is anymore. Is he
So
robot?
The white robot thing. That's also in what's the Atomic Heart game that came out. I believe that's a Russian like idea of how futurism and robots would look. That's a very common thing from how they used to have it.
Yeah.
That's
Plus, we had that. What was that Musk party a few months back, where he introduced Optimus 2?
Yes.
Yeah. It's
But
becoming
that sleek feminine robot, like the way, like sleek, like a white body type.
the
That's a
iRobot.
very Russian futuristic thing.
Yeah.
So at least they got that part which fits.
Yeah, I really liked the robot design. It was but it was alien, but also kind of realistic in a sense. It was just very cool.
Yeah. So
It's the Art Deco mannequin variant.
it's the visual storytelling, I think, that really matters, because this was made, I feel like it was made primarily by, even written by visual animators or just visual artists that thought that way. We need this scene with this lighting, with this camera angle, this zoom in, with this, you know, and then the psychedelic stuff. I don't even know how they pulled that off. I couldn't tell you. I'd have to talk to my animator buddies, because that was just like a trip and a half, and some of the music videos were okay, some of them were not.
Yeah.
So you get a big mix. It's like going to a buffet and you're like, oh, this is shit, this is amazing, this is garbage. Everything's just this big crazy kaleidoscope.
And I think that approach with the visual artists, the visual storytellers, being this big focus or big drive in it, is what saves the show. Because that's where those people know how to tell a message without saying anything. And while in contrast we have the text of the characters that is not enough. So these two, I'm sorry, I'm lacking the words to express this right.
I think if they watered down Victor or made his ambitions a little more grounded, I think it would have been a lot simpler to explain what the hell he wanted to do and how he did it, because I still don't know what the Glorious Revolution is outside of everyone's dead.
Well, again, he doesn't think they're dead. He thinks they're getting robot bodies.
No. He thinks their spirits are now without pain. The bodies are in the physical world. That's a remnant. That's not important. What's important is what he sees is the golden ghosts.
Yeah. Well, either way, check it out. Thanks, guys, for your time. We'll have another discussion probably on Monday, hopefully about anime. We skipped it last week, but hopefully we'll get back on the weekly updates to anime, because the videos we get, no one wants to do them because they're not very good. They're silly.
We need new people to suggest stuff.
Maybe, yeah. We should ask more people to get different
You know,
ideas.
just watch my videos. I'm sure you'll enjoy all of them.
That works too. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys, for your time.
Have a
We'll
great
talk to you
night.
soon. Have a great
That was
night.